Lightning flashed across the city, and it practically reached modern houses. Thanks to the loudspeaker, the news spread among the people that a popular phone store was closed, and therefore all new mobile phones in the store where the sound came from would be discounted. The young man who shouted this advertisement hoped that at least someone would buy a phone from him. It turned out that the hero was unable to sell a single phone for a month, so he is trying as best he can to lure customers. On TV at that time they said that cases of missing young girls had recently become more frequent in the city. And while the news was promising rewards for those who provided evidence, the seller was thinking about warning Wang Wei. The young man called the girl, calling her dear, and asked if she was at work. But, unexpectedly, Wang Wei told the main character that they needed to break up, which the guy did not expect at all. It turned out that the girl abandoned the young man, because in 3 years he had not earned a penny in his store. The seller tried to dissuade Wang Wei, promising that he would find the money to buy the house. However, the heroine no longer wanted to listen to anything, and simply suggested that they forget each other. Of course, the main character tried to dissuade his beloved in some way, but she simply dropped the call. So the young man was left all alone, standing in his mobile phone store. The lightning continued to rage, and the weather seemed to only get worse. At that moment, the seller decided that his ex-girlfriend would regret what she had done. After this, the young man went out into the street, shouting that if he did not earn money for everything in 3 years, then let lightning strike him. And then something happened that the young man could not have expected, because lightning actually struck him. Lee Sing-hee decided that this was a sign that he was destined to remain a poor bachelor for the rest of his life. And then someone asked the guy what was wrong with being single. However, the main character was sure that he was alone, so he began to look around in surprise. When the seller did not notice anyone, he began to ask the stranger to come out of hiding. And after that, a gray-haired old man appeared in front of the young man's eyes, wearing strange clothes. The unknown person introduced himself as the immortal heavenly god of thunder, and then he asked the young man whether he dared to call him. Lee Sing-hee decided that it was Thor, and then he was surprised, because it seemed that the god should look a little different. Then the seller also introduced himself, and then asked the old man what he was doing in the phone store. The immortal thunder god became interested when he heard about mobile phones. It turned out that the old man's phone was broken, and so he began to ask the seller to show God the assortment. The young man was happy because he finally had a chance to sell something. Lee Sing-hee began to show God different models, saying that he was ready to make a discount. But then the old man said that this was not a telephone at all, and then asked what this thing was called. God began to shout at the guy because he dared to deceive Ben Xian, and then took out an old telephone. The immortal's phone was so old it looked like it had been bought from a museum. After that, the old man replied that he still had something to do, so he would buy a mobile phone from the guy in the future. Then God disappeared, and Lee Sing-hee began to think that this madman might have superpowers. And then the seller noticed that the old man managed to break more than half of the mobile phones, and did not even pay for it. Unexpectedly, the young man's mobile phone lit up, and the guy began to hope that Wang Wei had changed her mind. However, on his phone the main character saw some kind of heavenly list that he knew nothing about. Then the guy received a message that an order had been received to gather Dianmu Tianjie. It turned out that Ben Xiang left heaven and did not return, and if anyone provided information about him, he would receive a reward. It was then that the young man realized that the old man was not crazy, but a real god of thunder. A chat appeared in front of the young man, where the other gods were discussing the disappearance of one of them. Lee Sing-hee wrote to this chat about seeing Ben Xiang in his store. After this, the seller also shared that God ruined a lot of his goods, so he is waiting for compensation for the damage. Then the young man was offered to open a store in the immortal world, but the guy did not know whether it would make sense. After this, the main character was sent a reward, as promised for any information. The young man was surprised that he actually received merit points because he didn't say that much. They explained to Lee Sing-hee that these points could be used to buy many things from the heavenly list, but the most expensive items were vintage mobile phones, which did not look their best. And since even antique phones cost a lot of money, then smartphones could be sold well. Then the seller noticed a golden pill that could instantly increase strength, and the guy had enough points for it. Then the young man decided to order this product, and after that his hands began to go numb and his phone began to vibrate. After this, the golden pill ended up directly in the young man's hands, which was surprising. The smell of this pill was terrible, like a pig barn that had not been ventilated for a month. Although it smelled strongly, the guy noticed that he began to feel much better. The young man felt more energetic, and it seemed that some changes were taking place in his body. So, despite the smell, the pill really did look like a magic pill. Lee Sing-hee had already begun to dream about how he got everything thanks to the incense of this elixir. And then the seller heard strangers discussing whether a beautiful girl would go this way, and whether they were standing correctly. Considering the fact that girls began to disappear in the city, they could be criminals, so the young man decided to stop them. The seller knew that if he could provide evidence and identify the suspects, he would become rich. And while the strangers were further discussing their plan, the young man quietly crept up to them. Lee Xinghe decided to take photographs of the crime and then call the police in order to eventually receive a reward. The villains had already begun to doubt whether the one they were expecting would come, but then she appeared in front of them. The unfortunate woman was immediately surrounded by strangers, asking her why she was walking alone at such a late hour. But the beauty turned out to be not simple, because she was not at a loss, and immediately threatened the police. And then the main character realized that it was a girl who was recognized as a beauty and a genius of the college where he studied. After that, the poor woman immediately began to say that she had personal security. But the guys had been watching her for a week, so they knew that this was a lie. The heroine was unable to escape, because there were many more attackers, so she was captured. And then Lee Xinghe appeared, telling Miss Yu that he was coming, which surprised the criminals. However, the girl said to this that the seller should leave immediately, and everything would be fine with her. Then the attackers decided that the young man was Yu's hidden guard. Meanwhile, the young man calmly extended his hand to the heroine, inviting her to go home. Although Miss didn't remember Lee Xinghe, she decided that she would be safer with him. The four criminals calmly released the girl, and also apologized to the seller. But Yu understood that the guy didn't look like a bodyguard at all, so she was worried that the villains would guess everything. And the Miss's assumptions turned out to be correct, because the criminals realized that the guy was just a salesman. The heroine wanted to know the name of the young man, but he replied that first he needed to go as far as possible. However, the young man did not have time to escape anywhere, because he was hid in the back. When the criminals learned that Yu did not have a bodyguard, they set off to catch up with the departed heroes. The villains decided to punish Lee Xinghe for trying to deceive them by pretending to be a security guard. And the Miss began to ask the attackers to stop beating the innocent guy. One of the attackers told the girl that they would release the seller if she stayed. The young man understood that he could not just give up, and that something had to be done. And then Lee Xinghe remembered the golden pill and decided to use it. Thanks to this potion, the young man became much stronger, and blows no longer hurt him. With the help of the resulting power, the seller was easily able to repel the attackers. Yu didn't understand what happened to her savior, so she tried to find out from him. But there was no time to talk, and Lee Xinghe asked the Miss to call the police. Although there was only one seller, he calmly fought with 4 criminals. When the police arrived, Captain Zhang suggested that the attackers might be the ones kidnapping the girls. However, the young man did not receive a reward for capturing the villains, as he himself had hoped. But Yu was very grateful to the young man, and even wanted to be protected by a person like Lee Xinghe. And then the seller replied that in this case, he could become Mrs. Bodyguard, and it would not cost much. After this, the heroine apologized for not recognizing the guy, but he replied that many do not know his name. Lee Xinghe noticed that the beauty was covering her nose with her hand the whole way, so he asked her about it. It turned out that it was all due to the fact that some strange smell was coming from the cellar. At night, the young man thought first about Yu, and then about his ex-girlfriend, because he still hoped that she would return to him. And then the young man noticed that someone had written to him at such a late time. The message was sent by a person under the name Liu Xun, and there was a photograph in it. It turned out that in this photo were Wang Wei and Zhang Xiaojun, who were Lee Xinghe's classmates. The seller was angry with this photo, and the guy was ready to settle scores with the couple. And then the young man realized that the next day there would be a reunion of graduates, and then he would meet with the offenders. However, the young man still had an unpleasant odor, so he could not go anywhere. Therefore, Lee Xinghe decided to ask the gods how he could get rid of this stench. The hero was told that the smell should go away on its own in a few days, and in order to get rid of the smell faster, you had to buy an odor pill. However, it was very expensive. It turned out that in order to earn merit points, you can sell magic weapons. But this news did not make the guy very happy, because he only had mobile phones. Then the young man decided that he still needed to try to sell mobile phones in the world of the gods. Immediately after this, the flower fairy wrote to the young man, offering a scent pill for the phone. The hero only had to scan the phone and then exchange it. Although the seller was not sure that everything would work out, after some time the pill ended up in his hand. This potion smelled much more pleasant than the previous one, so Lee Xinghe calmly used it. Meanwhile, one very interesting meeting took place at the Chaiyang Hotel in Wenan. To be more precise, there was Mr. Zhang, who was asked what his secret to success was. The young man explained that everything was thanks to his father's millions and hard work, and then presented a gift for all women. The gift turned out to be the latest skincare set from a well-known company, which everyone was happy about. Therefore, the girls began to tell Wang Wei that her current boyfriend was much better than Lee Xinghe. And then Yu came to the meeting and said that the seller was much better than Mr. Zhang. It turned out that the company where the girl works could be acquired by Xiaojun, to which Yu replied that in that case, she would resign. After that, the main character himself joined his classmates. The rich man, meanwhile, told the beauty that she should keep her promise to quit, And the first thing the young man did as soon as he walked in was pay attention to Wang Wei and Xiaojun. Zhang immediately rushed to introduce his new girlfriend to Li Xingye because she was the salesman's ex. Containing his aggression, the young man wished the couple happiness. Xiaojun began to tell the guy that he was poor, so no one would love him. However, the young man was surrounded by a large number of girls who talked about how beautiful their classmate was. Zhang didn't understand why he wasn't the center of attention, so he asked Guo Yun to teach Li Xingye a lesson. And while the main character was calmly communicating with women, he was immediately attacked by Guo Yun. The blow was so strong that the young man began to bleed. Xiaojun was happy about this because now everyone should focus all their attention on him. His friend immediately ran up to Li Xingye, asking if the seller was okay. Zhang said that if the guy still had strength, he could fight back. The young man, of course, did not miss this chance to hit his opponent. Moreover, Xiaojun asked for it himself, so he received a strong attack. Although Li Xingye had no money, he could still teach Zhang a lesson. The seller began to attack Xiaojun again, but then someone stopped him. It was Wang Wei who asked the main character to stop beating him. Then Li Xingye actually stopped hitting Zhang, but hit his ex instead. After this, the young man said that from now on he would always be on his own. The next day, the guy noticed that all the injuries he received in the evening had disappeared. And then the seller noticed that although he takes a hot shower in hot weather, he is cold. After this, the main character felt that he was not the only one in the room. The man noticed the ghost, and frightened began to run away from it. Li Xingye shouted to the creature to stay away from him, because he was communicating with gods from the immortal world. The ghostly girl asked the young man if he really saw her, to which he answered positively. After this, the ghost practically attacked the seller, knocking him onto the sofa. It turned out that the stranger came because of the scent of the main character, which appeared because of the pill. But the guy understood that he could not allow this creature to pursue him. Therefore, the man decided to write to the fairy, who was playing on her new phone at the time. The goddess didn't care about the seller's problems, so in the end she just sent him some video. And then the young man forgot about all his problems, because the flower fairy turned out to be very beautiful. But then the guy remembered that a ghost was sitting next to him, so he asked for help again. It turned out that the guy needed a manual on spiritual strength. However, this book was very expensive. The young man could also ask the Monkey King for this book, but even here he would have to pay. After this, Li Xingye asked the goddess if she knew the composition of the scent pill. The young man decided to make such a pill, but without the side effects of ghosts. And then the fairy replied that you can simply not use yellow spring flowers, but then the effectiveness of the potion will decrease. Then the heroes agreed that the goddess would provide all the ingredients, and the man, in turn, would in the future give her 10% of the proceeds after selling phones. After this, the main character wrote to the Monkey King asking for a manual on spiritual power. In exchange, Li Xingye offered a phone, so God quickly agreed. After this, the young man received medicinal materials from the fairy. Using the formula, a dozen pills can be prepared from these herbs. So this time the seller will not only be able to help Yu Wangchu, but also make a fortune. After some time, the Monkey King sent the guy a manual, while he waited for his phone. Then the young man, with a familiar gesture, scanned his phone to send it to God. It turned out that the Monkey King sent an electronic version of the book, and the young man clicked on using it. After this, something incomprehensible happened, and the main character seemed to lose consciousness. Li Xingye found himself in a place unknown to him, and various words were circling around him. The guy didn't know what all this meant, so he just decided to touch the word no. Because of this, everything around began to sparkle, blinding the main character with bright flashes. And then the seller woke up and realized that he had a very bad headache. And then the young man received a message that the first practice lesson was completed, and this really helped get rid of the ghost. With a calm soul, the main character went to the large building in which Yu's company was located. Zhang, meanwhile, told Mr. He that he was now demanding the acquisition of 100% ownership. And although Mr. did not want to completely sell his company, Xiaojun insisted on this, because otherwise the company would go bankrupt. After this, the secretary announced that product manager Yu Wangchu would come in on important business. However, Mr. Ho asked the girl to wait, because an important conversation was taking place. But the girl could no longer be stopped. Moreover, she came along with Li Xingye, who had a very effective product to save the company. And at that moment, the heroes noticed that Zhang was in Mr. Ho's office. Xiaojun began to ridicule the young man, reminding him that his mobile phone store had gone bankrupt. And after that, Zhang switched to the Elan company, laughing at the fact that an ordinary seller was going to save it from bankruptcy. Mr. Ho was tired of listening to this, so he demanded that both people come to leave. After this, the girl asked the man not to force himself, because he still doesn't understand cosmetics. However, Li Xingye was confident in his products, so he decided to simply look for another company, and then said goodbye to Yu. While returning home, the guy noticed that the flower fairy had written to him. The goddess said that 7 fairies were interested in buying a phone, and then reminded them of their percentage of sales. After the conversation, the young man noticed how an old man fell next to him. Therefore, Lee Singhe immediately made fun of helping the elderly man get up, and a woman passing by told the seller not to mess with this old man, because he had some strange clouds over his head. But the young man, in turn, simply began asking his grandfather about his condition. The young man asked the old man if he could hear someone talking at night, even though there was no one nearby. Then the old man was very surprised, because Lee Singhe described the reality. After this, the grandfather said that his son's company was in trouble, because some person had ruined its reputation. So the pensioner had to turn to feng shui masters, but no one helped. And then the old man said that if the guy could solve this problem, he would be rewarded. To this, the main character replied that it was his duty to help others, and then offered to accompany his grandfather home. When Li Xinghe brought the old man home, his adult son would meet him there, and then it turned out that the seller knew this man because it was Mr. He. After this, the young man asked to look around, and he was allowed to do so. The main character began to look for evil force, saying that no one could hide from him. As a result, the young man called on the power of heaven and earth to destroy the evil that was in the house. And then a terrible monster appeared in front of Li Xinghe and began to fight off the blows. Suddenly, the evil moved directly into the old man, taking away control of his body. After this, the old man changed a lot, becoming more angry and frightening. He wanted to know what happened to his father, but he in turn simply struck. The young man began to try to find out from the ghost what happened to him. And then the monster said that he should be asked how he killed the young girl. It turned out that the man understood what he was talking about, asking if he was talking about Guo Wei Wei. 6 months ago, a drunken he killed a young girl while driving, and then used vile means to avoid punishment. However, the man continued to argue that Wei Wei was herself to blame, because she crossed the red light. But the girl's ghost didn't care, and said that she wanted He Jian and his entire family to die. After this, the creature began to say that Li Xinghe would also die. The girl's resentment was very severe, so she wished death on everyone. Then the young man shouted about sacred treasures that were supposed to hear his call. Yellow sheets have started to appear around the ghost, and they can know the soul and seal the spirit. Using his strength, the young man was able to calm the raging monster. As a result, the dark smoke began to turn into the girl's head, which the young man immediately grabbed. He Jin was grateful to the young man for saving his father. After this, the man promised that he would pray for Guo Wei Wei every year. However, the main character was upset that he was not rewarded, although this was promised. After a while, there was a loud noise in Li Xinghe's mobile phone store. It turned out that the culprit was 2 ghosts who were arguing with each other. So the guy realized that ghost women cause more trouble than ordinary women. To resolve their dispute, the girls went to the main character, because one of them believed that since she appeared first, she should be more important. The young man understood that his spiritual strength was too small, so each time he held back the monsters only for a while. So Li Xinghe decided to come up with something before the creatures drove him to death. Then the man wrote that whoever helps him deal with ghosts will receive a phone. The guy was immediately answered by Zhang Tianxi, who was ready to help. But first he wanted to get a phone number. The seller immediately sent the phone, and in return received a set called the 5-yin contemplation array. Then the main character activated this set, and a dome immediately formed around the ghosts. The array really worked well, so the young man can now sleep peacefully. The next morning, He came to the young man's store, which surprised him. The man told the seller that he was inviting him to the company, because Li Xinghe wanted to cooperate. The young man noted that He had recently kicked him out, but today he was inviting him. Then Jian asked the seller for forgiveness, and then added that Li Xinghe could be trusted after yesterday. After the apology, the main character replied that in this case, there is no need to remember the past. At the Yilan Company building, Mr. Zhang tried to dissuade He from trusting Li Xinghe, but was unsuccessful. The seller demonstrated his recipe. However, Xiaojun snatched it from the wrong hands. Mr. Zhang laughed at what the young man came up with, and then simply threw away the paper. However, the seller knew that this recipe was worth hundreds of millions of dollars, so Xiaojun couldn't just throw it away. Then his classmates bet that if this recipe really worked, Zhang would give the young man $1 million. But if nothing works, then Li Xinghe will have to apologize on his knees and then leave the city forever. And then the main character suggested to his opponent that if he loses, he will not only pay money, but also run naked down the street. It was already too late to retreat back, so the young people agreed to all the conditions. 4 hours had already passed since the argument, and there was still no evidence that the recipe was working. But then Yu came into the office with the words that the sample was completely ready. He noted that the product brought did not look like a cosmetic product at all. To this, the hero replied that you first need to take 100 grams of ginseng powder and 50 milliliters of warm water, then boil for 3 minutes, and the effect will be visible at the first use. But Lee Singa shouldn't have rejoiced ahead of time, because it was still unclear whether it would work. In the end, they decided that they needed to test the product on a cleaning lady, so they ran to look for her. Aunt Q easily agreed to the test, because her face was already scary, so she had nothing to lose. While applying the product, the cleaning lady noted that it smelled very tasty. The aroma was so strong that everyone else smelled it too. But then the men heard some screaming, so they rushed to help. It turned out that it was Q who was shouting, and Yu was sitting next to her, asking her aunt to open her eyes. Mister, he immediately began to say that he was very sorry, and the company was willing to bear all the losses. However, the woman did not scream from pain, but on the contrary, she liked the remedy. The cleaning lady became so beautiful that none of those present immediately believed it. While Zhang was talking about how this was impossible, he accidentally stumbled and began to fall. However, Li Xingyi caught his classmate, reminding him of the terms of the contract. Xiao Jun understood that now there was no way he could get away with it, because the recipe really turned out to be working. Therefore, the loser immediately transferred the promised money to his opponent. Then the seller and Mr. He began to rejoice, because finally they would be rich. But Zhang was not so strong once, because he also had to fulfill the second part of the agreement. The young man was so happy that he continued to admire the million even after returning home. The main character was already planning that he would buy even more phones with this money. And then Li Xingyi realized that he would spend all this money very quickly. However, the boy will start receiving half of the income when the cream hits the market, and this will become the guy's main income. And then the fairy wrote to the main character with information that 7 more fairies want to buy a phone from him. The young man then asked the goddess if she knew any celebrities who could advertise his cream. Then the flower fairy sent a video, which she offered to post on the internet. Having completed his communication with the goddess, Li Xinghe noticed that Liu Xun was now calling him. It turned out that the main character's classmate was celebrating his birthday, so he invited his friend to a blues bar in the evening. But the salesman said that Liu Xun deserves better, so they should go to Diamond Bar. However, the young man did not appreciate his friend's offer, because that bar is one of the most expensive in the city, but Li Xinghe insisted on it. Therefore, they decided to celebrate their birthday at the Diamond Bar. However, the alcohol in this establishment was so expensive that Liu Xun could not afford anything. Then one of the guests told the young man not to try to pretend to be rich, and the girls who came with the birthday boy were not happy either. The stranger who reprimanded Liu Xun introduced himself as Chao Heng, who runs several cosmetic stores, and he invited the birthday boy's girlfriends to his table. The girls really left the young man because he had no money at all, but the young man continued to wait for his friend, hoping that he had a way out of the situation. And then someone touched Liu Xun on the shoulder and asked why he was sitting alone. It turned out that it was Li Xinghe who finally reached his comrade. Then the birthday boy explained that all the guests had gone to a richer man. The main character realized that he couldn't leave everything like that, and something had to be done. After some time, the host said that table 66 won the most expensive bottle of wine. It turned out that it was Liu Xun's table, and the winnings were immediately brought to him. After this, the waiter was ordered to call the most beautiful woman to the table. Meanwhile, the girls who originally came with the birthday boy did not understand what was happening. As a result, the beauty came to the winner to give him something to drink, as Li Sinha ordered. However, this was prevented by Mr. Lu's girlfriend, who immediately began to swear at the girl and the birthday boy who had come. In the end, the main character explained that it was he who called the beauty to the table, so his friend was not to blame for this. Then Yin hastened to apologize to Liu Xun, because she had misunderstood everything. The classmate was very grateful to Li Sinha for that, because the guy turned out to be a really good friend. After the evening ended, Cao Heng approached the seller, unhappy that he had been insulted. However, the young man did not want to listen to the stranger's discontent, so he said that he was very busy. But then Mr. Cao's guards shouted that they needed to kill the young man and not talk. The main character didn't even bat an eyelid, because now he had enough strength to fight. Li Xinghe calmly defeated all opponents without even getting hurt. One of their security guards even started calling the police to report that he had been attacked. And immediately after that, the man received a blow to the face without having time to dodge. Officer Zhang arrived at the scene and asked Li Xinghe why he was always getting into trouble. Then the young man noticed that a dark fog was circling above the policeman. After that, the officer said that the case of the disappearance of the girls had not yet been solved, so he was a little annoyed. But the hero had to worry about himself because Chao Heng could sue him. And then one of the guards called Mr. He, asking him for help. Jin was unhappy that someone dared to cross the path of his people. But after that, Mr. He learned that the incident happened to Li Xinghe. And then the man officially told his security guard that he was fired. The next day, Mr. He apologized to the salesman for failing to keep track of his subordinates. The young man said that everything was fine with him, but he just didn't want to pay the medical expenses of the guards. And then a stranger burst into the main character's room while he was talking on the phone. The girl suddenly burst in and asked the seller if his name was Li Xinghe. Then the young man ended the conversation and confirmed that this was indeed his name. The stranger introduced herself as Tang Xiaoxi, and then asked if the young man could exorcise ghosts. The main character wondered where the girl knew this information. Miss Tan admitted that He Ye, who is Mr. He's father, told her about this. But then Li Xinghe said that he was not a monk to exorcise ghosts. Then the girl said that she was the daughter of Tak Gaoyi, the president of Tang Group, and her grandfather was sick with something. It turned out that Xiaoxi is a celebrity, which interested the young man. As a result, Miss Tan said that she was ready to pay a lot of money to exorcise the ghosts. In addition, the girl promised to give the guy shares in their company if he really helped, so he agreed. Therefore, Li Xinghe immediately hurried to get ready to go to the rescue. But Miss Tan said that there was no need to gather, because the right place was in the city of Wenan. And after that, the girl asked the hero to demonstrate his strength, because at first glance, the seller did not look like a master. Then the young man began to show some strange gestures that Miss did not understand. It turned out that the young man called to him a ghost whom Xiaoxi had not seen. Due to the presence of otherworldly forces, the girl began to feel trembling throughout her body. Suddenly, the main character thought about showing Miss Tang ghosts. Therefore, the young man used the psychic mirror technique. Xiaoxi didn't understand what was happening, so the seller asked her to look around. In disbelief, Miss Tang actually began to look around her, and then she saw a ghost. The beauty was very scared, but Li Xinghe only laughed at her. Because of the ghosts, Xiaoxi began to try to escape, but the seller did not have time to stop her. But then the girl lost her balance and fell right in front of the main character. However, in the end, the young man managed to prove his abilities, so the miss immediately transferred part of the promised amount to him. After that, the beauty began to leave, saying that she would wait at the intersection. When Xiaoxi came out, Li Xinghe couldn't help but shout about how he had made a fortune. But the girl did not understand how her grandfather could recommend such a stingy person. The stranger, using the same magic as the main character, appeared in front of a large number of people. The man also talked about how heaven and earth would help him destroy evil spirits. Looking at this were Tang Xiaoxi's second uncle, Tang Gaoqian, Tang Gaoyi, and Tang Xiaoxi's father. Some of the guests said that the old man would not be able to recover, so they already wanted to divide the inheritance. It turned out that the stranger, who turned out to be Master Tao Xingming, was invited by the second brother. And the payment wasn't even important, because the children just wanted to help their father while they had a chance. The master, meanwhile, continued to use his spells, trying to drive out evil spirits. And then the second brother turned to Tao Xingming, asking if the end would come soon. After this, the master became distracted and looked in the direction from where they were addressing him. However, only the beautiful girl attracted all the man's attention. Tao Xingming liked the beauty so much that it almost knocked him off his feet. The master even started bleeding from his nose, but he explained this by saying that he was wounded by ghosts. Tao Xingming assured those gathered that the devil was sitting in this place, so they needed to be careful. As a result, the master managed to catch the monster that was causing harm to the family. But after that, the man added that the elder was very weak and old, so his life now depended only on doctors. And then Li Xinghe and Miss Tan entered the room, who immediately stopped the master. The father immediately began asking his daughter where she had been and who she had brought with her. And the seller at that time said that Master Tao was just a very good actor. Then everyone started whispering that Tang Xiaoxi might also just be a liar who wanted to get his hands on the inheritance. After this, the second brother demanded that Tao Xingming explain everything. However, the master only reminded that he defeated the devil in front of everyone. The young man became interested in what the captured ghost was like. Approaching the animal, Li Xinghe shouted for the psychic mirror technique to dissipate. And then, in the place of the terrible devil, a cute dog appeared, which no longer seemed like a monster. Thus, the seller was able to prove to everyone that what was standing in front of them was not a master, but a liar. The young man thought that Tao was using high-level techniques, but it turned out that it was low-level illusion magic. These words offended the man, and he said that he would now show everyone his strength. Since Xingming started working, he has received many awards, so he cannot be compared to a salesman. However, no one listened to the master anymore, because everyone was interested in Li Xinghe. And then Tao decided that since the seller knew everything, then let him tell everyone why Elder Tang was sick. The main character responded to this that everything is too simple, because the elder is simply too old. But the master did not expect that the young man would actually dare to say this. Then Miss Tan asked the seller if he was really telling the truth just now. And after that, the young man swore with everything he had because he was confident in his words. Some began to talk about saving time and dividing all property, and others decided to find the old man, because there was a chance that he had already died during this time. But then the old man's son demanded that everyone calm down, because many behaved terribly. And then Tang Gaoyi was asked not to deceive himself, because the old man had very little left. The others began to say that today's ritual was just a show put on by the second brother. And then it turned out that Tao Xingming was invited so that the old man would hand over the entire territory in Hong Kong in gratitude. This is how the master learned that he was just a tool for display. Then Xiaoxi entered the conversation and began to scold everyone for not caring about the elder. Li Xinghe began to try to stop the old man's granddaughter, asking her not to be so impulsive. And so the young man recalled that he only spoke about the elder's condition, but he did not say that he could not save him. Miss Tan hopefully asked the main character if he could save her grandfather. The seller understood that he had to do this, because he had already been paid 10 million. And then the master told the young man not to boast, because prolonging life goes against the laws of nature. The hero wants to try to resist nature. And then Black and White appeared next to him, who were spirits that take away human souls. Then the young man realized that time was running out, so he needed to be faster. Therefore, the poet needed to help the elder as soon as possible before he was taken away. It seemed to the Bai girl that the man saw him and Hey, but the black one replied that people could not see them. And then the young man, whom the spirits had just discussed, burst into his room. The young man began shouting to the white and black men to stop. Then Hey asked how the guy dared to interfere with them, and the girl was only happy because she was right. Bai noted that there were no traces of ghostly energy on Li Xinghe, and the young man generally did not look like a ghost. The master also followed the seller and asked not to put on a show because there are no blacks and whites here. The man said that he would now subjugate Yang Wan, who was the ruler of the kingdom of the dead, and this arrogance offended the spirits. Therefore, Black and White decided to punish Tao for insulting Mr. Yang Wang. And then the master said that if Li Xinghe stopped the Black and White, he would worship the seller. However, the young man did not have time to do anything because the spirits beat Tao too much. And then the main character noticed that the elder was already dying, so something had to be done urgently, and Bai asked the guy to cooperate with them and not interfere with their work. However, Li Xinghe only asked the spirits not to touch the old man, and then the seller was distracted by Miss Tan, who asked what the young man was doing. Xiaoxi didn't understand who the main character was talking to and what was going on. But at this moment it was not the best time to answer questions, so the girl was asked to leave the room and prevent others from entering. But almost everyone was unhappy that they had to listen to a stranger. They began to accuse the girl of simply wanting to take all the old man's property for herself. Miss Tang didn't understand why her close-knit family had become like this, because she just wanted to save her grandfather. And then the girl was helped by her father, who ordered everyone to do as Mr. Li says. Until the seller leaves the room, everyone is prohibited from entering there. The main character, meanwhile, asked the spirits to let the old man go. However, everything was not so simple, so Black and White could not let the elder go, ignoring the laws of the underworld. And then the young man noted that the old man's soul did not yet completely belong to the spirits, because they could not take it away so quickly. But even in this case, the life of the elder ends, so even the gods will not be able to help here. Therefore, the young man dared to stop the Black and White, trying to take their souls. It really wasn't that simple, because the seller didn't know what to do now. The guy's actions made Bai and Hei laugh that they even wanted to take the man with them. But these words did not frighten the main character at all, which surprised the spirits. It turned out that the guy asked the gods for advice. However, they could not say anything important. And then Zhang Tianxi wrote that you could use the resurrection pill, but it had a high price. God demanded 500,000 merit points from the main character for the potion. The young man had no choice, so he had to agree to the deal. Therefore, Li Xinghe still acquired the supreme resurrection pill. As always, this potion, striking with its radiance, immediately appeared in the hands of the seller. Black and White were amazed that the young man had this pill, because it was lost several centuries ago. Then the spirits decided to stop Li Xinghe until he gave the potion to the old man. But it was too late, because the elder quickly swallowed the pill given to him. After this, the young man apologized to the Black and White because he ruined all their plans. Hei promised the guy that he would report this case to management, and Li Xinghe would have problems. When Tao woke up, he began to ask the seller to take the master as a student. However, the main character did not want to teach the smug man anything. After this, Mr. Tang himself woke up, which made Xiaoxi very happy. The heroes started a dialogue, and the old man asked the young man, whom he considered promising, if he was married. Then the young man replied that for now he was an ordinary bachelor. For some unknown reason, this news made the elder very happy. And then the granddaughter told her grandfather that he should just pay for the help and not ask unnecessary questions. Unexpectedly, the guy's phone vibrated, because he received a message from Wang Chu. The girl wrote that she was grabbed and held in a car, so the young man rushed to help. Then Xiaoxi ran after the seller to take him to the right place. Already in the car, Miss Tang asked the seller how much Wang Chu was important to him. The main character responded to this that there was nothing serious between them. And while Xiaoxi was explaining why she even asked about this, the young man looked into the next car. Then the young man realized that his girlfriend was there. The intruder's car rushed by very quickly. so Miss Tang also had to speed up. The girl performed a dangerous stunt because the main character told her to catch up with the black car. However, Xiaoxi herself was not sure that they were pursuing criminals because she did not notice who was in the cabin. Li Xingyi explained everything by saying that he had improved all his physical indicators, including his eyesight, so he definitely saw everything. As a result, Xiaoxi was still able to find the black car of the attackers, but it was already too late because there was no one inside the car. Therefore, the heroes decided to go to the house next to which the car was parked. Although the girl was worried that this would be illegal entry into someone else's house, she still went along with the seller. When friends finally came in, they noticed women's clothes that were just lying on the floor. The young man decided that this might be somehow connected with the case of the disappearance of the girls. And then, unexpectedly, the heroes were surrounded by a group of criminals who did not scare the seller at all. One of the attackers ordered the guy to be killed and the girl to be captured. Then Xiaoxi decided that she could distract the villains, and the young man would have to run away at that time. However, he abandoned this plan. The criminals attacked all together, but the young man calmly fought them off. But everything was not so simple, because one of the attackers turned out to have a pistol. The young man was not at a loss and asked the man where they hid the girl that they had recently caught. Unfortunately, the seller was in no position to ask questions. Xiaoxi also reminded the guy of this, saying that if Li Xingye was going to take risks, then they would both die. And then the main character invited the attacker to make a deal. Namely, the young man offered to exchange the kidnapped girl for the one who came with him. These words shocked Xiaoxi, because she did not expect this from the young man at all. The guy began to praise Miss in front of the villain, talking about how beautiful she was. However, the man responded that if Li Xingye wants to save his life, then 2 girls will not be enough. The villain invited the young man to join their organization. And then the seller would not only remain alive, but also become rich. Then the main character began to talk about how he had always dreamed of joining some gang. So Li Xingyi swore to the attacker that he was willing to serve them. The girl, looking at this whole performance, thought only about how disgusting it was. And the man, in turn, began to laugh, saying that the young man was smart for speaking like that. And while the criminal was rejoicing, the seller managed to intercept his hand with the gun. The young man began to turn the villain's hand so that the aim was not on the girl. However, the attacker still managed to shoot the main character. Miss Tan immediately rushed to help the guy who was afraid for him, and then his accomplice ran to the criminal Liang and said that the police had arrived. Therefore, the villains began to run away, leaving the girl upstairs, because there was no time for her. Then, Xiaoxi asked the seller if he really wanted to give it to that scoundrel. The young man said that he just wanted to distract the criminal. However, this did not save him from being hit by the girl. And then the main character said that if he was hit again, he would definitely die. Suddenly, Miss Tang had an idea that Li Xinghe was not so bad. After that, the heroes went in search of Wang Qiu, and eventually found her in one of the rooms. Yu was very grateful to the young man for saving her from the kidnappers, and Xiaoxi then thought that she was simply superfluous in this place, because they didn't even pay attention to her. Unfortunately, the police were unable to catch the attackers because they managed to escape. But based on the evidence found, we can say with confidence that those are the people who were involved in the kidnapping of the girls. While Captain Zhang was speaking, the protagonist noted that the black fog above the man's head had become thicker. In a more relaxed atmosphere, the girls were able to meet and introduce themselves to each other. Wang Qiu immediately noticed how beautiful Miss Tang was, with her perfect figure and snow-white skin. And then the girl decided that although Xiaoxi was cute, Yu was not going to give in to her. A verbal skirmish ensued between the heroines about who was more beautiful. At first, the girls talked calmly, but with each sentence they said it became more and more like an argument. As a result, the rivals agreed that they were serious opponents for each other. And then the girls remembered Li Xingye, who was wounded and was waiting for help. After this, the young man was sent to the #1 hospital in Wenan City. The young man had been there for the whole day, so during this time the doctors managed to remove the bullet from his body, and he was already on the mend. The main character asked the staff where the girls who brought him were now. It turned out that the heroines left in the morning while the young man was fast asleep, and they did not want to disturb him. Then the nurse told the guy that he needed to stay in the hospital for at least 3 more days. However, thanks to the pills, the seller could recover overnight. But Li Xingyi decided to just pretend to be sick and take a break from everything. In the end, the rest didn't turn out to be very long, because the goddess called the guy. And the woman called because many fairies wanted to buy phones from the young man. Since the seller could not leave the hospital, he decided to send Liu Shun. So the young man called his friend and asked him to bring him the phones. While waiting for Li, the hero decided to watch TV, on which they were talking about a popular girl. And then the guy realized that the one for whom the whole internet was crazy was the goddess of flowers. It was then that it turned out that it was Li Xinghe who uploaded the video of the goddess online. The fairy dance became so popular that everyone began to create massive plagiarisms of it. The young man learned that in this way, he became an internet celebrity. Everyone was wondering who the dancing girl was, and who Sini, who had already been nicknamed the god of PR, was. The flower fairy became so popular that even the stars began to imitate her. Video revelations have even begun to appear about whether the goddess has undergone plastic surgery. The video that the young man posted received a large number of views and comments. Therefore, the guy thought that next time he should not ask the fairy for help. After that, a friend of his came to Li Xinghe and brought phones. Then Liu Xun noticed that his friend was wounded, which made him very angry, and he was ready to punish all those responsible. The main character explained everything by saying that he simply fell into a hole last night. After this, the young man asked the seller to be more careful in future. And then the young man said that he had a job that paid well. And then Li Xinghe suggested to his friend that he try to get a job as a sales director at the Elan company, because there was not enough of him there. At this time, a girl named Yue was walking down the corridor with a phone in her hands. The heroine was streaming and talking about how she would finally be discharged tomorrow. But then Liu Xun, who was in a hurry, crashed into Yue, so he did not notice the man. After this, the young man apologized, saying that he was just in a hurry. However, apologies alone seemed not enough for the girl, so she was already thinking about calling the police. Yue then grabbed the phone and started complaining that she had just been knocked down. Everyone began to write angry comments towards the young man, threatening him. Liu Xun offered to take the heroine to the doctor if she felt unwell, but then the girl turned her phone camera towards the young man, saying that it was he who hit her. The guy tried to explain everything, but commentators were already writing about how they would punish him. And Yue said that if men feel sorry for her, then they can pay for her medical bills. Then the young man realized that the girl was simply using him to attract attention. Therefore, Liu Xun decided to take the heroine's phone in order to clearly clarify the situation. To this, Yue began to scream that she was being bullied harshly. Of course, a large number of people came running to the noise, and everyone took the girl's side. In addition, one of those who came running turned out to be a big fan of little Yue. Therefore, the young man's action greatly angered those around him. And while all these showdowns were going on, Yue was filming it all on her phone because her stream continued. The heroine already imagined that this video would become a hit because many people saw it. In the meantime, the seller sent the last phone, so the work was finished. But the guy couldn't rest because he heard some screams from the corridor. It seemed to the young man that his friend was calling for help, so he decided to check. Therefore, Li Xinghe ran out of the ward and headed towards a large crowd of people. And then the main character saw Liu Xun, who was wearing cosmetics. The stranger said that the boy should be turned into a girl so that he would no longer pester Yue. Therefore, the seller immediately began shouting for his friend to be released. And then it turned out that the unknown person was a patient in the psychiatric department, so the doctors soon took him away. Finally, the man began to shout that he loved little Yue very much. Although Liu Xun was fine, his appearance made him very upset. Li Xinghe tried to reassure his friend, saying that there was nothing wrong with his face. It was just disgusting to look at. And after that, the main character tried to stop the girl because of whom this all happened. And Yue answered the guy that Liu Xun deserved such an attitude because he pushed her first. However, the young man began to demand that the heroine apologize to his classmate. And then the girl turned the camera to Li Xinghe, calling him an accomplice of the second bully. In the comments, everyone immediately began to write that the seller was a disgusting person. So the heroine believed that she did not have to apologize because everyone was on her side. After this, Yue added that her fans are always ready to deal with her offenders. The young man decided to teach this girl a lesson because she was sure that since she was popular, she could do what she wanted. And then Li Xinghe noticed a camera that had been filming what was happening all this time. After this, the main character came up with a plan to teach this girl a lesson. After some time, Xiaoxi brought her friend a flash drive containing video from surveillance cameras. Miss found information on the internet that Yue is a popular streamer, so the video will not affect her in any way. And then Li Xinghe told his friend that she shouldn't worry, because there was already a plan. To this, Xiaoxi replied that she was not worried at all, but that her grandfather had forced her to help the seller. After this, the girl remembered that the elder gave the young man a gift. To the surprise of the young man, this surprise turned out to be the keys to a Mercedes. The main character was glad that he finally had a car. After that, Li Xinghe noticed that someone started calling him on his phone. It turned out that it was a friend of the seller who said that the smartphone store had been destroyed. The guy was angry, so he asked Liu Xun who dared to do this. And then it became known that the Yue fans were to blame, so Li Xinghe should have hidden for a while. However, the young man was not going to hide, but wanted to take revenge for his store. And since Yue fans can allow you to do this, then the main character will not be afraid to be rude. Li Xinghe wrote that he is the god of PR, and then added that he wants to show everyone the truth. And after that, the seller posted a video that showed that Liu Xun was not to blame. Little Yue meanwhile was on the show as a rising star. The presenter suggested that the girl look on the internet to see the reaction of fans. However, what everyone saw was not words of love and support, as expected. Everyone on the internet insulted the little girl and wrote that she was shameless. Yue didn't understand why her fans were so up in arms against her. Then the presenter said to suspend the release due to some technical reasons. The little girl began to apologize to Shu, because she didn't know that this could happen. But this did not calm the presenter, and she began to scold the girl for angering the god of PR. Due to the incident, Yue's account was blocked on the platform, so all the little girl had to do was apologize to the PR god and ask to delete the video. And the girl will have to do this at any cost, otherwise her career will be ruined. In addition, Yue may try to attract the PR god to their company to promote it. Then the little girl decided to prove to Li Xinghe that she was not so easy to break. The main character, in turn, continued to rest in the hospital room. But then his peace was disturbed by a nurse who unexpectedly came to see him. The seller noticed that the girl's usually neutral outfit had changed. After this, the nurse said that she was going to take the young man's temperature. But then the young man remembered that his temperature had not been taken last evening, which means it was not required. However, the nurse continued to insist that it was better to find out his temperature. And then the girl stumbled a little, falling right on the main character and apologizing to him. After this, the seller thought that the nurse's voice sounded familiar, so he took off her mask. That's how Li Xinghe realized that in front of him was not just a girl, but little Yue herself. The heroine began to apologize to the god of PR, saying that she was very sorry. Also, the girl began to talk about how she would do anything to be forgiven. The young man began to think that Yue's sin was not that great, so it could be forgiven. However, the guy still didn't want to accept the apology so easily. And then Li Xinghe noticed that the little girl had brought a camera to set him up. Of course, after this, the seller demanded an explanation from the heroine. The girl admitted that she wanted to take a couple of shots and blackmail the PR god with them. Now the main character definitely didn't need an apology, and besides, he could call the police. And then Yue said that because of this she could be fired, and then she would commit suicide. To this the young man replied that he would never forgive the girl for what she did. However, the seller still asked to take a couple of photos of the baby so that she would become popular. The young man noted that the heroine herself tried to set him up and now she bows to justice. But then the dialogue was interrupted, because someone called Yue's phone. It turned out that it was Sister Shu who asked the girl where she was. The woman reminded the little girl that her father was in debt, her mother was in the hospital, and her brother needed money, so she had to get along with the PR god. Shu added that if Yue does not force Li Xinghe to delete the video, she may not come again. The main character listened to this entire telephone conversation until the very end. After that, Yue said that she would not bother the young man anymore. Then the seller took pity on the baby and deleted the video that exposed her, and all because Li Xinghe felt sorry for those for whom the heroine earns money. To this the girl replied that she would not thank the guy, because she would return this favor to him in the future. The main character felt sorry for Yue because she took the dirty path. The next day the seller was already discharged from the hospital because he was already healthy. Xiaoxi came to meet Li Xinghe to help him test the donated car. The friend asked the guy if he had driven a car before, to which he responded positively. However, the young man simply did not want to embarrass himself in front of the girl. But it was still not possible to lie for long, because Li Xinghe was driving the car too fast. And then a girl walked right next to the car with a bouquet of flowers, who appeared unexpectedly. It turned out that it was not just a passerby, but the beautiful Wang Chu. The girl decided that Li Xinghe was not who she imagined him to be. Because of the salesman's behavior, Wang Chu began to think that she had fallen in love with the wrong person. At that time, the young man himself got out of the car and headed towards his girlfriend. Then Wang Chu said that she was not going to see Li Xinghe, but was just taking a walk, so she would not interfere with the date. Xiaoxi also decided to have her say, asking how the girl dared to consider her and the seller a couple. But the beauty decided that since the heroes were driving around the city in the same car, then they would definitely meet. The young man began to deny everything, saying that his girlfriend was talking nonsense. But the guy's only thought was that it's nice when two beauties fight for you. And then Xiaoxi decided that since the girl considered her and Li Xinghe a couple, then she could be teased. The rich woman handed the young man a golden card and said that he could use it. But the main character did not understand what happened to his girlfriend. As expected, this behavior of the heroes angered Wang Chu even more. So the beauty said that Li Xinghe was shameless, and then went home. And when Wang Chu left, Xiaoxi asked the guy to return her card. And after that, the girl told the seller that she would borrow his car. Thus, the main character was left with nothing and completely alone. But this did not last long, because his student came for the young man. Tao Xingming arrived to pick up his teacher from the hospital. However, Li Xinghe soon noticed that he was being taken along the wrong road, and his house was in the other direction altogether. The man admitted that he was actually planning to take his teacher to the Taoist Association's experience exchange meeting. Taoist Master Dui Zhenren and the leader of the Taoist Venanya Association Kui Gongyuan were already waiting for the young people. However, the men said that it was not worth inviting Tao Xingming. Meanwhile, the heroes had already arrived at the right place, which made the man happy. But Li Xinghe was very angry that they continued to call him a master. Then Tao said that 10 years ago he lost to his opponent, so this time he needs help. But then the conversation of the young people was interrupted by some noise coming from nearby. It turned out that someone wanted to join the Taoist Association without an invitation. The stranger insisted that he should have received an invitation. The girl did not want to let the man in, so he decided to provide evidence that she was obliged to do this. The poor thing had a strange feeling as if someone was sitting on her back, and the stranger continued to insist that he should be allowed in. But Li Xinghe was angry that the man was mocking ordinary people, so the young man decided to help the girl in need by banishing the summoned creature. This action surprised the stranger because he did not expect this from an ordinary guy. But Li Xinghe didn't care, because he just wanted to help the unfortunate woman. Tao told the unknown man that he should no longer try to harm anyone, but the stranger began to say that he simply opened the girl's eyes. However, first of all, the man harmed an ordinary person, which is prohibited. One of the association members came running to the noise and tried to find out what was happening. Therefore, the person running asked Tao who the two people arguing were. Jingming introduced Li Xinghe as his master, which interested the man. And Tao didn't know the second man, so he couldn't imagine him. The stranger said that his name was Wu Hai, and then asked to enter, although he did not have an invitation. When Wu was finally allowed to enter, he told the seller that he could enjoy the girl he had saved. The young man noticed that the yin energy was overwhelming the victim, so she urgently needed help. While the young man was treating the girl, her friend was waiting outside the door with Tao. The heroine was in awe of how young and talented Li Xinghe is. Xingming began to talk about how he also has power, and moreover, is an idol among all Taoists. And so Tao, smiling, invited the girl to get to know each other better. However, to this the heroine only replied that the man should not touch her. Li Xinghe, meanwhile, remembered that he needed to take off the victim's clothes in order to transfer his qi. The young man began trying to save the girl before it was too late. In the end, everything worked out, and the heroine woke up. But she did not understand where she was. On top of everything else, the victim did not understand where all her clothes were. The main character reassured the girl by saying that he had to undress her to save her. After this, the heroine began to say that it was very hot in the room. It turned out that because of what happened, the girl's body began to secrete hormones in huge quantities. But the victim did not listen to the guy, saying that she wanted to thank him. And while Li Xinghe called for help, his student only listened and did nothing. But then a member of the association approached Tao, asking where his master was, and then Xingming silently pointed to the door behind which the cellar was located. The young man, meanwhile, continued to ask the girl to stop, but she did not listen. Tao started knocking on the door, saying that Kui Guanyuan had arrived. After that, Li Xinghe asked the men to wait a minute. When the heroes entered, they were surprised at the state of the girl. The young man explained that he simply went too far while eliminating the yin energy. The man noted to himself that in this case, Li Xinghe's strength was great. Fortunately, Tsui had a pill that could help the unfortunate girl. The main character hurried to thank the chairman, and then gave the victim medicine. When the girl woke up, she asked Li Xinghe if she had done something wrong. The seller replied that everything was fine, and then the heroine said that she would never forget his kindness. After that, all the heroes were able to go to the association meeting. Yitao introduced Li Xinghe as his teacher and true master. One of the association members called the seller a simpleton and ridiculed Jingming. The one who harmed the girl also came to the meeting, and he said that there was only garbage here, so he shouldn't have come. Tao heard these words and reminded the stranger that Li Xinghe had already taught him a lesson. The master noted that the stranger was very sharp and straightforward, so it was strange that he had not been noticed before. As a result, the old man ordered everyone to calm down and then began to announce the rules of the meeting. First, the knowledge of Taoists will be tested, after which the winner of the first round will be determined. The second round will test skills, but there are no restrictions. After this, the first round began and the master asked who wanted to be first. Then one of the association members volunteered, and all that remained was to find him an opponent. Tao raised his hand after the first, attracting everyone's attention. The old man remembered that Jingming was ridiculed last time, and he wants to disgrace himself again. However, Tao raised his hand not for himself, but for his master, saying that it was Li Xinghe who wanted to participate. It turned out that Jingming decided this without discussing it with the young man himself, which angered him. As a result, the main character had no choice, so he had to go to his opponent. The association member thought that he was lucky because he had come across a stupid guy. After this, the man asked Li Xinghe if he knew how many worlds there were. Everyone was surprised at how simple the question was for the young man. But the old man thought that this is not as simple as it seems at first glance. However, the main character eventually admitted that he did not know the answer. Everyone was shocked because Li Xinghe doesn't even know the basics. But then, the young man shouted that the others did not know the exact answer. The only thing we can be sure of is that other worlds exist. But it is not at all a fact that their ancestors learned all the secrets of this universe. No one has studied the worlds themselves, so they cannot give a correct answer as to how many of them exist. Everyone thought that this sounded logical, which meant that Li Xinghe was a sage. And Tao was once again convinced that it was not in vain that he became the young man's student. However, the opponent began to shout that the seller was delusional, and his answer would not be counted. But the master argued with the members of the association, saying that the answer does not have to be standard. As a result, it was decided to consider this round a draw. And after that, the exchange of knowledge ended. After this, the competitors moved on to the second round, namely, the skill test. A stranger was carefully watching everything that was happening, thinking that Li Xinghe was very interesting. In the next challenge, players had to lift an object into the air. Competitors were given items to choose from and could use any skill. Tao shared with his teacher that last time the old man managed to lift the stove. This means that the main character will also have to lift the stove in order to win. The young people were asked who wants to show their strength first. Gao Shan responded again, saying that he wanted to show his brothers his strength. The man began to try to lift the peachwood dagger, and Gao Shan, who used all his strength, almost managed to lift the weapon. However, the player was not experienced enough to complete the job. After him, there were many more people who also wanted to show their strength. All the heroes gave their best, and many managed to lift objects of varying weights. As a result, the bar was raised so high that only great masters could win. And then Tao suggested that his teacher try it, but he was already tired of this association. After that, the stranger who had been standing at a distance all this time decided to join the battle. The unknown person called all the masters weak, which greatly insulted them. Then the man walked up to the heaviest object to prove that he was the strongest. But then Tao shouted that his teacher was 1,000,000 times stronger than the stranger. However, the man did not listen to anyone, but simply lifted the stove, which was very heavy. But Li Xinghe suspected that something was wrong with the stranger. It turned out that the man was cheating, using the spirit furnace to raise it. The stranger said that his performance had come to an end, and then asked if there were anyone else interested. And since no one wanted to go against the man, he was practically declared the winner. Meanwhile, the main character did nothing, but simply watched what was happening. But the stranger rejoiced, calling everyone present trash. Then the master decided to enter the competition to try to defeat the impudent man. Everyone was confident in the old man, so he began to try to lift the stove. However, after some time, it began to seem to those present that the master would not succeed. But despite everything, the old man still began to gradually lift the heavy object. Unfortunately, the master succeeded for a split second, and then the thing fell, and the old man felt bad. The stranger emphasized that the old man was not at all the same as he was before. The impudent man then continued to mock the members of the association, because he considered himself the strongest. Then Li Xinghe finally gathered his strength and told Tao that he would try to challenge him. The young man went to the largest stove to raise it in front of everyone. However, the others were not happy that some guy was going to defend the honor of the Taoists. The seller decided to resort to the spiritual power manual to figure out how to pick up the item. Using the knowledge gained, the young man began to use magic. But unfortunately, nothing came of it, and the object did not even budge. The young man even felt embarrassed because he had failed. This angered the association members even more, and they began to drive the guy away. And then Tao stood up for Li Xinghe, who shouted that the rest simply did not know the true strength of the seller. But no matter how much the others argued, the young man understood that he really did not know how to lift objects. The stranger called the guy ignorant, and then added that you need to concentrate first, and not immediately raise. And Tao, in turn, said that you first need to imagine how Li Xinghe holds this object. The seller decided to listen to Jingming's words, starting to imagine how he grabbed the stove. And then the young man realized what exactly he needed to do. Namely, the main character guessed that he needed to feel the entire object. After all this, the young man actually managed to lift the object with the help of magic. But the stranger did not expect this at all, so he was very surprised. Tao was proud of his master, so he supported him with words in every possible way. Everyone began to whisper that Li Xinghe was already in the realm of the Supreme Master, and while the members of the association considered the young man the hope of the future generation, he only thought about how hard it was for him. The stranger at that moment realized that he had underestimated the main character. And after that, the impudent man promised that he would definitely remember Li Xinghe. Before what happened, one very interesting conversation took place far in the mountains. The spirits reported to His Excellency that Li Xinghe had interfered with them. The man then did not understand where the mortal got the resurrection pill, and so His Excellency wanted to meet the seller in person. As a result, the main character won the association competition. The old man was grateful to Lee Sina because thanks to the guy, the prestige of the association was restored. And then the young man noticed that Wang Chu was calling him on the phone, which made him very happy. The young man decided that the beauty called him because she missed him. However, the girl told the seller to come to the company because he had urgent business. It was clear from Wang Chu's voice that she was not particularly happy. In any case, Li Xingye was happy because the girl was the first to contact him. When the guy came to his friend, she was surprised that he showed up without his rich girlfriend. The main character guessed that the beauty was still angry because of Tang Xiaoxi. So the salesman explained to Wang Chu that she had misunderstood everything. However, the heroine did not need the young man's explanations. And besides, she considered them too different. And the beauty called the seller to talk about work. It turned out that to promote a new face cream, the company decided to open a talent show together with agent Li Kui. And Li Xinghe was invited as a judge. And the girl already agreed for him. Also, Ouyang Haochen, a young student, was invited from the company. Therefore, a young man should put himself in order so as not to disgrace himself. And then the guy remembered that Lu Kui is Xiao Yueyu's agent. The main character had no idea that at that time someone was discussing him while sitting in the car. And it was Lu Kui and Ouyang who were talking about meeting the god of PR. The student was already thinking that he knew many girls, but there was not a single fairy among them. And then Kui warned the guy that dating girls from the competition was prohibited. But the young man finally decided to tell the fairy that she had become popular among people. The goddess was pleased to hear this, because in heaven she was considered an old witch. After this, the young man asked the fairy how she was selling his smartphones. It turned out that many celestials want to buy a phone, so everything is going well with the seller. But then the young man was distracted from his conversation with the fairy by the girl who called him. The heroine was looking for the god of PR, and so Li Xinghe responded to her voice. And she came to the young man Lu Kui, who was the planner of the talent show. After this, the girl said that she wanted the flower fairy and the other 7 fairies to come to her, and was ready to pay a lot of money for this. Seeing the amount Kui was offering, Li Xinghe was shocked. The girl promised that, thanks to her abilities, the flower fairy would become even more popular. However, no matter how pleasant the price was, the young man refused the deal. The young man knew that fairies would never work for others in their lives, for any money. But Li Kui did not back down, continuing to ask how much to pay. Still, the girl realized that it was useless to persuade the main character. After that, Kui showed the young man the list of contestants, and those who were circled would then receive a contract from the girl. And then, among all the contestants, the main character saw his friend named Lin Jing. Li Xingye decided that he needed to dissuade the girl from signing a contract with Li Kui. Before the start of the competition, the student greeted all participants on the big screen. Ouyang himself was in his room and thought that there was no woman who could resist him. After that, there was a knock on Haochen's door, so the young man hurried to meet the guest. It turned out that Lin Jing came to the student, whom he immediately let in. And then Ouyang thought once again that no one could resist his beauty. However, the girl did not understand why she came, and only asked what Haochen needed from her. The student explained everything by saying that Lin Jing had no experience in acting, and he decided to train her. When the girl asked how the training would go, the young man replied that he wanted to take her through an emotional scene from a movie. Lin Jing thought it was too revealing for training, but Ouyang replied that it was quite standard. The girl screamed for Haochen to stop, however, he only said that it was time to start the show. But then the student was interrupted by someone who unexpectedly knocked on his door. It turned out that it was a messenger who brought something from the lady. Ouyang asked why it was delivered so late, to which he was told that he should open the box and take a look. Then Haochen, without hesitation, opened the package brought for him. And after that, a scream was heard from the room, because in the box the student saw only a ghost. Ouyang was so scared that he even forgot about his guest. Haochen hurried to the exit, begging to be let out. But Lin Jing didn't see anything in the box, so she didn't understand what scared the student. And then it turned out that the messenger was Li Xingye, who asked the student to teach him acting skills. After this, the ghost girl expressed a desire to learn how to be a good actress. And then the main character could not stand it and hit the student for his inappropriate behavior. Li Xingye explained all this by saying that he just wanted to do an action scene. And while Haochen asked to be released, the young man decided to show him a couple of tricks. Then the student began to say that he was hired for a high price, so they had no right to beat him. Li Xingye introduced himself as the god of PR and demanded that Ouyang get out. The girl asked the main character what he was doing here, and he explained that he was a judge of the competition. Lin Jing was grateful to the young man, because he helped her a lot. After that, the girl asked what Haochen saw in the box, and the guy said that it was a common trick. And then the main character asked his ghost to leave already. It turned out that Lin Jing could no longer refuse the competition, because she had signed the contract and was legally responsible. But the girl no longer wanted to stay in this place because she was afraid of Ouyang. And then the heroine asked if she could stay with Li Xingye for a while. However, it was not a good idea for the contestant and the judge to live together. But the girl continued to beg the young man, because she was very scared. Lin Jing noticed that the guy had never touched her, which means he can be trusted. But Li Xingyi didn't know what to do, because he couldn't take a friend to his home. But it was difficult to refuse. At this time, Hao Chen swore to himself that he would take revenge on the god of PR, because he almost ruined the student's face. But then a man appeared behind Yu Yang, who ordered the guy to calm down and stick to the plan. After this, the student bowed to the newcomer and said that he was obeying him. As a result, the main character could not refuse the girl and brought her to his home. Lin Jing began to say that she would not be a freeloader, so she was going to help with the laundry, cleaning, and cooking. What the girl was offering was quite beneficial for Li Xinghe, but then the dialogue was interrupted by a call coming from the young man's phone. I called the guy Wang Chu, who heard that he went to a party in a bar, and that's why she was angry. And then Li Xinghe began to pretend that he was talking to the buyer and was busy. The angry girl waited calmly while the young man talked about his goods. After this, the young man said that he had many customers, so he could not discuss everything with Wang Chu now. After putting down the phone, the young man's first act was to apologize to Lin Jing, and the heroine decided that Li Xinghe had a girlfriend who called him. The next day, the competition had already begun, and everyone was shouting Hao Chen's name. The presenter, in turn, welcomed the leaders, spectators, and people from the media. The judges were also already sitting at the ready, waiting to see the performances of the contestants. Then the young man decided to quietly ask his friend why she didn't answer her calls later, and the answer was that she didn't care about him. Li Kui asked her friends to shut up because she wanted to listen to Yu Yang sing, and after that, the presenter announced that Hao Chen would soon go on stage. However, no one came out, although all the spectators waited with bated breath. The fans got angry and started saying that they would no longer buy Yilan's products if the student didn't show up. Kui learned that Yu Yang would not be able to come to the competition because he had health problems. After this, the woman turned to the director, saying that his company treated its customers terribly. However, the man didn't know anything, so he had to explain the situation. It turned out that last night, another important guest from the Yilan company beat Yu Yang severely, and therefore the student would not come that day. Li Kui told the director to deal with everything himself, and she left. After this, the man turned to Li Xinghe, asking him what was happening. Meanwhile, fans continued to shout for Hao Chen to be returned to them. The director began to ask the seller to save the situation, but Wang Chu did not know what could be done. Then the young man decided to turn to the gods to find a solution. The young man asked the fairy for an elixir that would make anyone sing like a nightingale. The goddess replied that Li Xinghe could buy it from the Sunying Cloud Palace store. After this, the main character quickly found the right pill and bought it. While the others were surprised, the young man calmly swallowed the elixir, washing it down with water. Fans, meanwhile, said that they were leaving because there was no fun. Then Li Xingyi grabbed the microphone and asked everyone not to leave yet. The seller was able to interest fans because he was very handsome, so they stayed. The young man introduced himself as the god of PR and said that he wanted to perform a song for everyone. The main character's longtime girlfriend noticed that his voice had changed a little, but the guests were glad that they saw the god of PR with their own eyes. In addition, the young man seemed very charming to everyone, and the seller proudly announced that he would now sing a song called I Want. The girl told the director that Li Xinghe usually sang as if a bear had stepped on his ear. It turned out that many years ago, the young man had a dream of becoming a singer. Thanks to the pill, the seller captivated everyone with his magical voice. Someone even began to say that the performance of the god of PR is better than the original. Wang Chu didn't understand why a guy who had never been able to sing sounded so beautiful. Even the director really liked the young man's performance, so much so that he began to remember his youth. There were shouts throughout the building about how Li Xingyi had the best vocals. The director was grateful to the young man for such a performance, so he offered to take him home. Then Wang Chu intervened in the conversation and said that she could take the seller herself. But this proposal scared the young man a little. When the heroes arrived at the store, the guy told his friend that it was time for her to go home too, and so the girl asked if the young man was going to invite her to his place. For the guy, this question was too unexpected, which was reflected on his face, and so Wang Chu asked if the seller was hiding women from her at home. However, the girl had no idea that Li Xingye had 2 female ghosts, but the heroine could no longer be stopped, so she calmly entered the house. And then something angered the girl, and the young man was already wondering what it was. It turns out that Wang Chu saw the TV turned on, showing dramas that women like. This is how Li Xingye learned that the ghosts were secretly watching TV while he was away. An acquaintance told the young man that she seemed to have underestimated him. And then the main character began to ask to give him at least a minute to explain everything. The ghost girls decided that their master was now having a romantic crisis. After this, the creatures decided that they would need to help Li Xingye. After all, if the seller's heart is broken, he can take out his anger on the girls. And the young man himself was already saying goodbye to his girlfriend, who decided to go home. After this, Wang Chu asked the young man if he was going to ask her to stay. The ghosts were already starting to get angry because of how stupid the guy was acting. And then the girls decided that the young man could not cope on his own, and they needed to help him. One of the ghosts grabbed Wang Chu's leg with her tongue, which Li Xingye also noticed. After which the girl pulled the seller's friend so that she began to fall, and the beauty fell right on the main character, who began to try to catch his friend. Because of this fall, the heroes accidentally touched their lips, and after that, the couple fell to the floor, and Li Xinghe hit his whole body hard. The young man hastened to apologize to the girl, who began to cry. Wang Chu shouted that she would never forgive the seller again, and began to run away. The ghosts, seeing this scene, began to hope that the master would not blame them. As a result, the young man still managed to catch up with his girlfriend, and he explained to her that everything happened by chance. But then someone started calling Wang Chu, which distracted her from the conversation. The beauty answered the call and was shocked by what she was told. Seeing the heroine's excitement, Li Xingke immediately asked what happened. And then the young man found out that all the participants were missing. After this, the main character called Captain Zhang to talk to him about it. The police officer reported that a rather suspicious silver vehicle was heading toward Bull Mountain. Then it was decided that Wang Chu would go home, and the young man would go in search of girls. As a result, the police managed to find a car that seemed suspicious to them. However, there was nothing in the car, and there were practically no traces left on the ground. The policeman found only one drop of blood, which was the only evidence. However, it turned out that there was more than one drop, because later more were found nearby. As a result, 9 drops of blood were found, which formed the constellation of the southern hemisphere of the sky. The spiritual teacher, who was called to help, decided that this was done on purpose, and if the old man's guesses are correct, then the criminals tried to make an array of 9 stars. It turned out that what employees now see may not be reality, and only by hacking the array can one see what is hidden. However, the old man did not know how to break this array, because he had only seen it in the records once. Then Li Xinhe, who had just arrived, decided to offer his help. The young man asked the teacher if there was any way to destroy the array. The old man replied that you need to be at the level of the innate realm to destroy this formation. After this, the young man asked for 10 minutes and said that he would try to do everything. Having gone deeper into the forest, the young man began to write to Tianxi with a question about how to quickly get to the innate kingdom. Then God showed the seller a pill that could help him, although this elixir was not particularly expensive. But seeing Li Xinghe in a hurry, Tianxi demanded a price 10 times higher than the usual price. The main character was surprised that God was trying to profit from someone's misfortune. However, the young man had no choice, because he had to save his girlfriend, so he agreed. After this, the guy received a pill that was supposed to help him. The young man hoped that, thanks to this elixir, he would truly be able to break into the realm of the innate. Li Xingyi swallowed the pill and immediately noticed spiritual energy gathering around him. Although the seller was not sure at first, the effect of the elixir immediately showed itself. After some time, the police noticed that the environment around them had changed. The young man noticed the cave and assumed that the criminals were there. There was such a stench inside the cave that some of those present almost felt sick. And then everyone noticed that almost the entire earth was watered with blood. After that, it was not difficult to find the source of all this blood, namely, the girls that were hanging from the ceiling. Because of what he saw, the main character assumed that this was the curse of the bloody soul. Unfortunately, all the victims of the criminals were already dead, so there was no one there to save. Li Xingyi heard so many tragic screams that he didn't even realize how many souls were trapped. Only by breaking the blood soul curse can these souls be freed. But there is no solution to this problem in the book on spiritual communication. Therefore, the main character again turned to Tianxi with the question of what he knows about the curse of the bloody soul. God knew that this spell was evil, so he decided to help destroy the criminal who used it. In the name of justice, Tianxi will help Li Xingye for free this time. And then there was a noise in the cave, as if someone else was there. It was then that everyone noticed the stranger who was trying to quickly hide from them. Li Xingyi ran forward, and when the others tried to catch up with him, they did not know where to go, because there were 3 entrances. Since there were also 3 people, they decided to split up and go in search of those who had escaped. The main character, meanwhile, continued to pursue the unknown. The stranger moved very quickly, and then jumped off somewhere, so that even Li Xingye had a hard time catching up with him. It was not clear whether the unknown person simply fell, or whether it was done intentionally, but he disappeared from the young man's sight. But the main character did not want to retreat, so he jumped after the one running away. When the guy went downstairs after the stranger, he saw the girls that were tied up. The women were scared, so Li Xingyi tried to calm them down, explaining that he would save them. But the unfortunate people continued to make noise, and then the young man saw the criminal in the reflection of their eyes. The stranger wanted to attack the seller from behind, but fortunately, the young man noticed it. When the attacker tried to strike, The guy was already ready for it and dodged. And after that, Lee Sin-a managed to break the attacker's weapon. Unexpectedly, the criminal grabbed a stone and decided to attack the seller with it. All this was watched by the girls, who were very frightened by the actions of the stranger. However, the young man was able to destroy the stone, because thanks to the pill, he was strong. The attacker did not expect this, so he even stopped in surprise. Taking advantage of the criminal's confusion, the main character was able to hit him. Lee Sin-a guessed that all of this was the power of the innate realm. After the young man dealt with the attacker, he was able to free the girls. The criminal's face was not visible, so the seller decided to find out who was hiding under the mask. It turned out that the culprit was Ouyang Haochen, which no one expected. The student begged the main character not to kill him, and Ouyang did everything because a year ago he noticed signs of aging and decided to stop them. Doctors could not help the student, and then he met a man named Young Lord, who had an age-freezing spell. The effect of the magic was noticeable because not only the skin became elastic, but the guy's appearance itself improved. And the price of Haochen's beauty was the lives of the girls, although the student claimed that he did not know about it at first. Unfortunately, Ouyang knows nothing about the one who helped him maintain his youth. Lee Sin-a then asked if there were other girls who could still be saved. It turned out that the young lord had locked the rest of the women at base number 2, which was next door. The young man decided to go to save others and left the student in the hands of the girls. The master, meanwhile, met with a young man named Wu Hai, who was at the association meeting. The old man decided that it was the young man who was behind what was happening, but he did not even deny it. And although the spiritual teacher understood that he could not defeat Wu Hai, he did not want to sit idly by. Therefore, a fight broke out between the men, even though the forces were unequal. Wu Hai was very fast due to the fact that he is close to the heavenly realm. The young man shouted that whoever gets in his way will die. But then the main character came to the old man's aid and immediately attacked Wu Hai. Thanks to the unexpected appearance, Lee Sin-a was able to deal a strong blow to the enemy. But the attacker did not even imagine that the seller would also be in this place. The criminal understood that he could not cope with 2 men, so he decided that he needed to run away. The villain also decided to bargain with the guy, saying that he was already 1 step away from completing his bloody soul curse, and if he was allowed to complete it, he would repay him well in the future. However, Lee Sin-a didn't care about the money, because he came to fight for the lives of innocent girls. After these words, the young man struck the attacker again. But Wu Hai was surprised that this is all that the main character is capable of. While the criminal was talking and taunting, he received another blow, which he could not dodge. The old man asked Lee Sin-a if the guy had really broken through from the kingdom of heaven. But then the heroes were distracted by some scream, so they stopped following Wu Hai. Taking advantage of the moment, the attacker ran away, confident that he would not be caught. However, the young man was primarily concerned with saving the girls, and not with capturing the villain. It turned out that all the kidnapped girls were already being helped by the police at that time. Among everyone, Lee Sin-a also found Lin Jing, which the young man was very happy about. After this, the young man saw the criminal he had met before. But not all was well, because one of the policemen could not bring Captain John to his senses. It turned out that the police were fighting with the kidnappers, and that's when the man was wounded. The guy realized that the captain was not breathing at all, so the doctors would no longer help him. Therefore, Lee Sin-a decided to try using the method from the volume on communicating with spirits, and then perhaps a chance would arise. The seller asked everyone to go outside, and he himself would try to help the captain. The young man had to drive his soul back into his body, and then fill it with spiritual energy. However, the young man had never tried to do this, so he took a big risk. The first thing the main character had to do was form a collection of souls, and then the young man heard someone's voice saying that Lee Sin-a was trying to challenge fate. Therefore, the seller immediately began to look for the person who said these words. The stranger continued to say that the guy would not withstand the consequences of a change in fate. It was then that the young man was able to find the source of the sound and asked who the girl was. However, the stranger did not introduce herself, but only clarified whether the seller was ready to risk his life for the sake of the captain. After this, the girl approached the hero, and calling his name, asked who he was. The young man was surprised that the stranger knew her, to which she replied that nothing from the world of the living would hide from her eyes. Then the young man suggested that the girl herself was from hell, but she began to deny it. However, in fact, the stranger thought that she had been discovered, and this was reflected on her face. Since Lee Sin-a was able to attract people from hell, then the soul collection formation is working. Therefore, the guy decided to continue, even though the girl said that it was dangerous. The young man began to ignore the stranger, which made her very angry. In the end, the heroine said that the seller can do whatever he wants. And then the girl saw that a strong explosion occurred next to the guy. After this, the main character felt very bad, and all the air was knocked out of his chest. So the girl rushed to Lee Sin-a's aid, asking if he was okay. Because of the noise, a policeman hurried to the young man, who did not understand what was happening. And then it became clear that the captain had come to his senses, which everyone was happy about. However, Kan was still weak, so he had to be taken to the hospital immediately. The stranger said that since the young man changed the captain's fate, he should be sent to hell for trial. Then Li Xingyi said that he needed to do something else important, and then he could be taken away. And then the heroes saw a large number of ghosts, which for some reason the girl from hell was afraid of. After this, the stranger realized that all souls speak in female voices. Therefore, the heroine asked the seller what he did with all these girls. In fact, Li Xingyi came to help souls find peace. However, the guy had used too much power before, so he needed help from a stranger. But the girl did not want to help the young man, so he decided to do everything himself. Although the main character was weak, he still decided to help the ghosts. The girl was surprised at how capable Li Xingyi was. However, due to lack of strength, the main character helped himself to his own detriment. Then the stranger from hell still took pity and decided to help the seller. Together, the heroes were able to help all the lost souls of the unfortunate girls. After that, the girl said that she would help the ghosts be reborn into good families, and that she would not take Li Xinghe to hell for now. Then the young man decided to ask what the stranger's name was. The girl replied that her name was Qin Weiwei, and then said goodbye to the young man. When everyone was about to leave, the spiritual mentor began to ask the young man to take him as a student. All this was observed by an attacker who managed to escape. Wu Hai promised himself that he would definitely make Li Xinghe suffer. After this adventure, the main character went to his home to the phone store. However, the guy did not arrive alone, because he was still followed by an old man who was asking to become a student. The mentor promised any money, and even gold, at home for this, which interested Li Xinghe. Then the guy said that he still agreed to take the old man as his student. After this, Tao insisted that he be his master's senior student. But then the main character was distracted by a mobile phone ringing, so he hurried to answer. It turned out that the young man had received a call from his father, so he was wondering what had happened. And then Li Xinghe learned that his mother's illness was getting worse. Hearing about this, the young man immediately promised that he would come right away. After this, the father added that if the guy takes his girlfriend with him, then it will be even better. The seller never told his parents that he broke up with Wang Wei, because he was afraid that his mother's condition would then become even worse. Then the young man's students decided that they should help their teacher. Therefore, Tao and his spiritual mentor decided to leave for a while, because they had some kind of plan. After that, Wang Chu suddenly came to the cellar, looking for him for some reason. And then Li Xinghe came up with the idea that he could ask his girlfriend to pretend to be his girlfriend. It turned out that the girl came to thank the guy on behalf of the company. In addition, there were some misunderstandings between acquaintances, so this also needed to be discussed. And then Wang Chu warned that she had not come to apologize. However, the beauty allowed the guy to ask her for something, and she will definitely do it. The young man was incredibly happy about this opportunity, because this was what he needed. Therefore, the young man asked Wang Chu to go to his parents, which the girl took as a confession. The beauty said that she agreed, while being very shy. But then the couple was distracted by the shouts of the students that they had prepared a surprise for their mentor. It turns out that men brought a large number of women of different professions. Tao said that he and Zhang Wuwei spent a lot of effort searching. What she saw did not make Wang Chu very happy, and besides, she decided that it was the guy who asked to do this. And then Jingming also offered to help the beauty choose a girl for Li Xinghe. These words made Miss Yu even more angry, and she said that since today is the day when the seller chooses girls for himself, she will help. And then the students hastened to explain to the beauty that there was no need to be angry, because the young man was looking for a fake girl for his parents. The young man himself also joined in the explanation, saying that his father just wanted to see his son's couple. And after that, the main character thanked Wang Chu for agreeing to help him. The girl realized that she had simply imagined too much for herself, because she accepted this invitation as sympathy from Li Xinghe. So the heroine said goodbye and said that she shouldn't have come today. Miss Yu approached the taxi and asked to be taken to Yilin's company, while the young man tried to catch up with her. However, the guy did not yet manage to catch up with his girlfriend, who became angry for reasons unknown to him. And then another girl called out to the main character, which the seller himself did not expect. It turned out to be Lin Jing, and the young man asked how she ended up in this place. The heroine decided that the seller had a girlfriend, and therefore asked him about it. And then Lin Jing shared that she was here to say goodbye to Li Xinghe, because she signed a contract with Li Kui. The young man began to scold his girlfriend, because the entertainment industry is too complicated. But the girl no longer wanted to be an ordinary maid, so she decided to try to become a celebrity. After that, Lin Jing left, and the young man thought after her that she had acted very stupidly. As a result, the main character went to his parents alone, although he did not know how to explain this to them. The young man decided that he would say that instead of a relationship, he decided to become rich. The young man was amazed at how everything in his life had changed in 6 months. When the main character entered his house, At first it seemed to him that no one was there. However, after that, Tao jumped out at the young man, who was chasing the chicken. Due to the fact that both guys did not expect to see each other, they collided. Li Xingyi asked Jingming why he was in this house. But then the student said that he, moreover, did not come here alone. In the kitchen, the spiritual master and Liu Xun were preparing dumplings together. Tao explained everything by saying that they simply could not allow the seller to return home alone. And after that, Xingming pleased his teacher that Wang Chu had come with them. Li Xingyi's parents had already asked Miss Yu about how old she was, where she worked, and where she was from. The couple also asked the girl whether she wanted to live with her husband after the wedding or stay with her parents, to which she replied that she would do as the young man said. And the seller's mother did not stop, finding out how many children Wang Chu wanted. The main character noted that his parents treat his girlfriend as their daughter-in-law. Besides, Li Xingyi's mom and dad liked Miss Yu and they agreed that she was a good option. Therefore, the parents had already begun to choose a date for the wedding and decided that they needed to look for a Taoist priest for this. And then both of the young man's disciples said that they were the best Taoists, so there was no need to look. As a result, the men consulted and decided that the 5th of May was the best date. Mom was happy and told Wang Chu that she and Li Xinghe were destined to be together. The main character himself was shocked that his parents were so easily fooled. The couple has already started thinking about selling the house to prepare more money for their daughter-in-law. The woman was even ready to sell all her jewelry to ensure her son's wedding. And then Li Xinghe decided that he could no longer lie to his parents. Therefore, the young man went out to his mom and dad, because they didn't even know that he had arrived. Then the main character began to talk about how he and Wang Chu had nothing. However, the young man did not have time to say anything, because his mother suddenly became ill. The woman fainted, and everyone immediately ran to her to help. The guy's father decided that it was his fault, because he knew that his wife loses consciousness when she gets excited. Then the spiritual mentor said that the woman needed to be taken to the bedroom, where he would help cure her. But then the young man was turned away by a loud sound unknown to him. It turned out that it was noise from relatives who were trying to force the couple to move out of the house. The man explained to Xian and Xingchen that they would only move when the price of their house was right. Because of the loud sounds, Wang Chu also came out into the street and tried to find out what was happening. The woman told Miss Yu that a stranger has no right to interfere in their family's affairs. Then Wang Chu replied that she was not an outsider, because she was the daughter-in-law of the Li family and the future owner of this place. The beauty spoke so confidently that even those who knew about the deception believed in her words. It turned out that this project belongs to the manager of the Genshin Guo Corporation from the city of Wenan. So even if the heroes call the police, nothing will change. After these words, the man ordered the destruction of the house in which there were still people. Li Xinghe, meanwhile, found a revitalization pill, which the men decided to use on Li's mother. With the help of this pill, a woman's illness will go away very soon. But then the men were disturbed by an unknown noise, because they did not know what was happening on the street. Then the young man left his mother to the students and he went to investigate. Meanwhile, Wang Chu tried to stop the workers so that they would stop destroying the house. But then the aunt approached the beauty and pushed her hard so that Miss Yu would not get in the way. Fortunately, the girl did not fall because Li Xinghe arrived on time and caught her. Then the cousin told the young man that they were already demolishing the house, so it was too late to do anything. The seller reminded his aunt that this place was favorable to the gods, so it should not be demolished. Then the guy added that if the relatives cause any damage to the house, then heaven will punish them. However, Xian didn't believe in all these superstitions, so she didn't care. Li Xinghe, in turn, promised the gods that if they now create wind, thunder, and lightning, he will give a new smartphone for this. But the deities began to say that they could not be bribed with just one telephone. The young man did not understand why the gods became so serious. However, the deities wrote this way only in the general chat, but in private messages they spoke completely differently. The Monkey King was the first to write to the young man. However, he did not know how to control the weather. But God simply had his own methods, so he could be trusted. Therefore, the main character said that he was counting on the Monkey King. After this, a strong wind immediately arose and began to circle near the house. The builder who was demolishing the building saw this and was very scared. The seller's cousin immediately asked his mother if this place could really be the favorite place of the deities. But the woman didn't care about this, and she ordered the worker to continue demolishing the house. And then strong lightning struck the excavator directly, even though the weather had been good before. This frightened the builder so much that he ran away screaming that he would not continue the work for any amount of money. It was then that the aunt and her son got scared, because they didn't expect this. Therefore, the relatives began to run away, and Li Xinghe shouted to them that he would be waiting for them again. The father, who was watching all this, was already wondering what his son had been doing for the last 6 months. After all, it seemed to the parent that a completely different person was standing in front of him. After this, the young man brought his parents to the hotel, because they could not stay in the destroyed house. The young man was asked how many people he needed a room for, and he answered that it was for 4. But then Wang Chu reminded that Li Xinghei's mother had just recovered, so it was impossible for her to guess about the deception. And so Miss Yu suggested that she and Li Xinghei get a separate room. The young man was shocked that he would be sharing a room with his girlfriend. As a result, the acquaintances actually took a separate room and went to it. Then Wang Chu said that she would sleep on top, and he would sleep on bottom. After these words, the young man's imagination ran wild. Meanwhile, the girl handed the young man a blanket and said that he would have to make do with this. That's when the guy realized that his girlfriend was talking about him sleeping on the floor and her on the bed. The heroine decided to go take a shower and asked that Li Xinghei not enter. However, the young man decided that nothing bad would happen if he stopped by. The young man already imagined how he would confess his love to his girlfriend, because he liked her. And because Li Xinghei began to fantasize a lot, he didn't notice and crashed into a lamp. This brought the seller back to reality, and he decided that Wang Chu would never accept his confession. Therefore, the guy decided to find a pill that would make him calm so that he could not give himself away to his girlfriend. Then the young man wrote to Tianxi, because he always helps him. And indeed, he had a sedative pill. Only the guy didn't have mobile phones with him, so he promised to send payment in 2 days. After Li Xinghei received the pill, it was difficult to tell from its appearance that it could calm anyone down. Although the young man had doubts, he still drank the pill he received. Meanwhile, Wang Chu was in the shower and thinking about what kind of relationship she had with the seller. The girl began to worry because she was too cold towards Li Xinghei, and so Miss Yu was thinking about giving the young man a chance after all. But after that, Wang Chu began to push these thoughts out of her head. The main character at this time began to feel that he was getting too hot. The young man did not understand why after the pill he did not calm down at all. So the young man called God and asked if he had given him the right pill. It turned out that Tianxi did not want to give the peace pill because the guy did not pay immediately with his mobile phone. In fact, God gave the seller a rhino pill, which nourishes the yin and yang energies, increases blood flow, and strengthens energy. The young man realized that at this rate he would not calm down at all, so he decided to just run away. At that moment, Wang Chu came out of the shower and wanted to invite the young man to sleep on the bed. But the girl did not have time to say anything to her friend, because he had disappeared somewhere. Li Xinghei ran outside, where he felt better, and finally began to calm down. And then suddenly the main character saw his aunt and cousin who were talking with their uncle. The relatives did not notice the seller, and he, in turn, clearly heard Li Xingchen's voice. Xian and her son apologized to the boy's parents because they did not know that the Taoist priests were friends of Chairman Guo. Then the young man realized that his students had sorted out all the problems. The man accepted the apology, explaining that they were family and should not quarrel. Then the couple noticed that it was getting dark, so they sent their relatives to rest. The Taoists, meanwhile, were wondering whether their master would be grateful this time. And then their teacher appeared behind the students and really praised them. Tao was surprised that Li Xinghei was not in his room at the moment, but the guy himself ignored the remark. After this, the main character gave the priests an innate pill as a reward. The next morning, the young man was woken up by his girlfriend screaming that they were in trouble. It turned out that the young man's parents and the Taoists had left, leaving their friends alone. The father wrote to the guy that Li Xinghei and Yu needed a rest, and therefore everyone else left for Wenan. The seller's mom and dad were always so attentive and didn't want to bother their son. After this, the main character called Tao with a question about where he took his parents. Jingming and the others were in the Nanhu estate, and they also prepared a grand surprise for the young man. This estate was the most upscale residential area, and it cost a lot of money. After this, the young man told Wang Chu that it was time for them to return to Wenan. Yu went to work, and Li Xinghei went to her parents, who began to ask him where the guy got so much money. To prevent the couple from thinking that the seller was doing anything illegal, he simply made it up that he had hit the jackpot. After this, the mentor yelled at his students for buying too expensive an estate, but it turned out that, thanks to a good friend, they were sold this place at half price. The young man thought that his parents deserved such a house anyway, because they worked for so long. Therefore, the young man left his mom and dad in this place, and he went to his store. As soon as Li Xinghei returned home, he felt a strange aura. After this, the main character noticed the ghost girls who were in chains. And then the seller heard the voice of a girl who was glad that he had returned. It turned out that it was Qin Weiwei who was looking at mobile phones. The girl had already sent souls to hell, so she came for Li Xinghei. And Weiwei didn't expect that the guy hid 2 ghosts in his home. Then the young man explained that he simply allowed the spirits to remain out of pity. Qin wanted to take these ghosts to hell, but the girls did not want to follow her. However, the girl from hell was not going to listen to the opinions of ordinary spirits. But Li Xinghei, using magic, prevented the heroine from accomplishing her plan. This angered Weiwei, and she said that since she could not take the spirits, she would take the young man. After this, the guy was captured, and the girl was amused that he dared to challenge her. Then the young man realized that it was better for him not to aggravate the situation. Therefore, the the young man decided to make a deal with the girl, in which it was assumed that in exchange for the phone, she would have to allow the ghosts to live in the store. Qin found this offer tempting, so she agreed to the terms. After this, Li Xinghe began teaching Wei Wei how to use a smartphone. The girl suggested that the seller download the Landlist application so that they could add each other as friends and communicate. It turned out to be an app widely used in Hell that has merit points that are needed to purchase items. It was something similar to a heavenly list through which Li Xinghe communicated with the gods. Wei Wei was surprised that the main character knew about the heavenly list, so he had to tell how everything happened. This is how Qin learned that the passage between the world of deities and the world of people was destroyed. After that, the girl said that it was time for her to go and thanked her for the phone. After some time, Li Xinghe's mobile phone received a call. The main character saw that the Monkey King was calling him, so he hurried to answer. It turned out that God went into the palace yesterday and bought himself a textbook on one technique. Li Xinghe immediately asked how much the Monkey King was willing to sell this book for. In return, God asked for phones for the master, Ba Ji, younger brothers Sha and Xiao Bai. The main character immediately agreed and began sending phones to the deity. After this, the young man received a textbook on a technique called firmament, and then the guy received a message that someone had died an unjust death in the city of Wenan. But the soul simply disappeared, so it was necessary to investigate the reason for this. The young man wants to take on this work, but she was already busy with black and white. Li Xinghe realized that even in the world of the dead there is now a lot of competition. In any case, the seller decided to go and see what happened in the city. The young man managed to find the girl who had died, and she smelled strongly of alcohol. In addition, the deceased did not have a single wound, and all organs were in perfect condition. The young man found out that there were no signs at all that the girl was dead. Therefore, the main character assumed that this could be somehow connected with Wu Hai. And then the young man was distracted by paper cranes that appeared out of nowhere. Li Xinghe immediately began to try to find who was responsible for all this. However, no one was visible, so the guy decided that this person had already left. But then someone suddenly grabbed the young man's leg with a rope and pulled. Moreover, it was an unusual rope, because the young man could not even get rid of it. It was then that the guy finally saw that Black and White had come to the crime scene with him. Unfortunately for the young man, the priestesses thought that he was the killer. With the help of a rope to bind souls, the girl could easily take Li Xinghe with her. This weapon was so strong that the young man's soul and body began to separate. However, the white one was a little nervous, because they were forbidden to take the soul from a living person. But the black one was not worried about anything. Then the guy asked to be allowed to send one message before going to hell. Black and White did not resist this, allowing the young man to fulfill his last wish. After that, the young man took the phone and began to quickly write something on it. And then the priests heard that someone had published a message on the Earth's list. It turned out that it was a message that Black and White forced the soul of a living person to be separated from his body. This news made the priests worry, because if it reached King Yan, it would be the end for them. Then Li Xinghe admitted that it was he who sent the message. The seller promised that if he was released, he would delete the news and explain that it was all a misunderstanding. The next day, the young man slept peacefully in his bed, but then the main character woke up and realized that he had slept through the first half of the day. It turned out that Li Xinghe promised mom and dad that he would bring Wang Chu to have lunch together. However, after that, the young man's attention was gathered by a call from Qin Weiwei. The girl said she wanted to see the guy tonight, so he would have to stay home. The heroine began to threaten the seller that if he did not do as she wanted, then Wang Chu would be in trouble. Therefore, Li Xinghe asked the fairy to give him an item that could protect him from hellish creatures. So the young man, without fear of anything, went to dinner with his parents and Yu. The girl was already boasting about the hairpin that the young man gave her, and she didn't even realize that this thing was protecting her. After this, the woman offered Miss Yu a grilled rabbit, but the heroine felt sorry for the animals. And then suddenly everyone at dinner felt very cold, as if a strong wind had blown. Then the woman asked her husband why he lowered the temperature on the air conditioner so much. However, he did not do this. But everyone didn't even realize that Qin was to blame for everything, coming for Li Xinghe. Wang Chu did not understand why it became so cold, so she asked the young man about the reason. The main character tried to negotiate with Weiwei so that they could discuss everything later in the store. However, the girl from hell wanted to ruin Li Xinghe's dinner because he didn't listen to her. After that, Qin began to reach out her hand to Miss Yu, but then she touched the hairpin. The magic item worked as expected, and Weiwei really couldn't harm Wang Chu. The girl from hell couldn't do anything else, so she just flew away. But all the dishes on the table became cold, even though they had been hot just recently. Miss Yu was not discouraged, and decided to reheat all the dishes so that everyone could eat. Meanwhile, Li Xinghe was thinking about how to take revenge on Qin Weiwei, because she had crossed all boundaries. When the young man returned to his store, he met a creature from hell there. As soon as the young man entered, he immediately attacked Weiwei with his magic. The girl started screaming that she didn't want to play with the guy anymore, so he should let her go. And after that, the young man asked why Chin was looking for him. It turned out that the heroine was wondering whether the young man was behind the case in which the girl's soul disappeared. Then the guy found out that Black and White had been reported against him, so that soon the Reapers would be sent for him. Li Xingyi was surprised that he was accused without trial. Therefore, the young man began to ask Wei Wei to take his side. However, she already tried, but nothing worked. The young man began to shout that it was too early for him to die, because he had not done so much yet. And then Chin couldn't help herself and started laughing, because she was just joking. After that, the girl from hell simply decided to leave, promising to investigate the soul case later. As soon as Wei Wei left, Tang Xiaoxi called the main character on his phone. The girl said that there was a jewelry exhibition tomorrow evening, and her grandfather wanted Li Xinghe to go there too. However, the guy said that his store was having a sale tomorrow, so he couldn't come, and then he hung up. Immediately after this, Captain Kan wrote to the young man, who sent him an address to discuss a crime that may be related to a previous case. Of course, the young man immediately hurried to the right address. When Li Xinghe entered the room, he saw the captain asking a stranger about someone's appearance. But the girl replied that she was too nervous and could not see her face. Therefore, it was decided to take the stranger home, and then interrogate her again when she came to her senses. However, the girl did not want to go home at all, because she was scared. Then the main character decided to ask Zhang what happened. It turned out that the girls worked together in the same club, and in the evening they were attacked, but the victim could not remember the appearance of the criminal. The stranger thought that she wanted to mock Li Xinghe because he is the one whom even the police are afraid of. So the heroine ran up to the young man and expressed her desire that he would take her home. The captain asked the girl to be more responsible about this because she was in the investigation bureau, but the young man still decided to take the victim home and then look for some more evidence. When the heroes reached the stranger's house, she invited the guy to stay with her for a while. After that, the girl fell on her bed while Li Xingyi stood nearby. And then the young man decided to ask again if the heroine remembered what the criminal looked like. The stranger once again repeated that she was very scared, so she didn't remember anything. However, in her heart, the girl only mocked the young man who could not do anything to her. And the young man decided to use magic to help the victim remember everything. After using hypnosis, the heroine was ready to do anything. Therefore, the seller asked the girl to draw what she saw at the time of the attack. The stranger drew a drawing without hesitation, and then immediately handed it to the young man. And then the main character, without a doubt, saw Wu Hai, already familiar to him. Having received useful information, the young man left the victim's house. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Li Xinghe felt powerful spiritual energy. And then through the window, the young man saw an exhibition of jewelry in the city of Wenan. So the guy immediately called Miss Tang to find out what time the exhibition started. At this exhibition, the first thing they started to do was applaud the head of the Tang group, Tang Xinyu, because he had provided great support to everyone. After all, this event is an important event for the city of Wenan. Also, it was not just an exhibition, because it was associated with the general elections of the Jewelry Association. He Guisheng and Wei Xing both want to take over as the head of the association, and it will depend on the jewelry they present. And then He Rong and Wei Jin, who were the daughters of rivals, approached Xiaoxi. The girls immediately recognized Li Xingye, because he was popular online. The heroines began to say that the Tang family was not doing well with the jewelry business, since they attracted media personalities. However, Xiaoxi explained everything by saying that the heroines of the PR God's video are very beautiful, so it would be appropriate if they wore high-quality jewelry. After that, Rong and Zhen started talking about how their jewelry was much better. While the heroines were arguing, the young man just stood aside and was silent. Then Li Xingyi decided that the girls and the three of them were having fun, so he left. Therefore, the young man went in search of an object from which spiritual energy emanated. As a result, the main character managed to find a stone, which interested the guy. The spiritual energy was so dense that the seller decided to take in as much of it as possible. After this, the young man began to feel much better. But then the PR god was seen by He Rong, who decided that he was trying to steal the treasure. The girl was about to call the guards, but the main character closed her mouth in time. The young man began to explain everything by saying that he simply really liked the He family's jewelry. And after that, Li Xingyi began to say that Rong was much better than Xiaoxi. The seller said that he had never experienced such feelings until he saw the girl. However, Rong did not believe the young man just because of a few banal phrases. But if the young man continues to praise the heroine like that, then maybe she will let him go. And then it was announced that an exhibition would now begin with the collection of the Wei group. Li Xingyi was not very happy about this, because he had not yet finished absorbing spiritual energy. Then the young man continued to praise the girl, and she still let him go. The main character was happy that he was finally able to escape from He Rong. Meanwhile, the exhibition announced a painting called Ascension Day. The painting by the famous artist depicted a Taoist ascending into the sky. If this painting was truly real, It must be very valuable. Many began to argue that the Ascension Day only exists in legends. But Li Xingyi suddenly felt that the spiritual energy in his body began to boil, and then something began to happen to the main character. And he did not understand what exactly. Unexpectedly, the young man found himself in a completely different place. Then the seller realized that his consciousness had entered the picture he was looking at. And then the Taoist said that after so many years he finally met a person walking the same path. The mentor invited Li Xingyi to stay in this place. However, the young man refused. The monk was offended that the guy decided that he could come and go from the secret kingdom at will. After this, the old man said that the young man would no longer be able to escape. The main character guessed that the Taoist decided to seal him in this place. Then Li Xingyi began shouting that he was ready to give all the money if he returned home. However, then the young man was already in the real world, and Xiaoxi heard his pleas. The guy asked where the painting was, and it turned out that it had already been taken away, and it was time for the He family. Therefore, the young man decided that all this was an ordinary illusion. Meanwhile, at the exhibition, the He family was preparing to display the most valuable treasure in their collection. This was the same stone that had previously attracted the seller's attention. If the purple jade sells for less than the Tang family painting, then grandfather Xiaoxi can become the head of the association. However, it was not yet known whether the stone was a real treasure. Miss Tan was very worried, because a very important issue was being decided now, and only the young man knew that the spirit energy of the stone was completely depleted because of him. To check the authenticity of the jade, it had to be sawed. And then everyone saw that the treasure inside turned out to be a simple dummy. The He family was shocked that their prized item turned out to be a stone. He Gusheng then ordered to continue sawing the object until the jade was found. However, even having reached the middle, the men could not find anything valuable. The man was extremely surprised, because he instructed experts to analyze the stone when he bought it. Then his daughter ran up to He Gusheng and asked what happened to the jade. And then Rong decided that someone could have deliberately spoiled their treasure. As a result, the painting Ascension on the day took first place at the exhibition. Then Li Xingyi asked Mr. Tan to give him this painting. The old man was very grateful to the young man, so he agreed immediately. And as payment, the main character gave the master an innate pill. The old man didn't know what kind of pill it was, so he timidly sniffed it. The effect was immediate, and Mr. Tang immediately felt better. So the old man guessed that this pill was worth much more than the painting. But then, Li Xingyi called Qin Weiwei, who said that she had figured out where to go with the missing soul. Therefore, the young man said that he would take the painting next time and hurried to the girl. The Tang family was being watched all this time by Rong and her father, who then decided that they had to take revenge on the seller. The young man got behind the wheel and asked Weiwei to clarify the address where to go. But here the main character became a girl who asked her for a ride. However, Li Xingyi apologized and said that he was in a hurry so he could not help. When the guy started to drive away, he saw in the reflection that this girl was holding a gun in her hands. The stranger got into the wheel, so the seller could no longer control the car. Unfortunately, at that time a truck was driving next to the young man's car. The two cars collided with each other, and Li Xingyi could not do anything about it. Since the young man's vehicle was much smaller, the truck pushed him off the bridge. The young man managed to jump out of the car, which could no longer be saved. However, the stranger did not calm down and continued to shoot at the guy. But the main character was not so simple, so he was able to get to the girl and hit her. And after that, the young man jumped into the truck and asked the driver who sent him. It turned out that the culprit for this crime was the He family, who wanted revenge. After this, the driver shouted that if he was destined to die, he would take Li Xingyi with him. And then the man twisted the steering wheel of the truck so that he flew off the bridge. The young man did not at all expect that the driver would do this, so he did not have time to stop him. After some time, the news began to talk about this situation. Wang Qiu recognized the sports car that fell into the river, along with the truck. So Miss Yu immediately started calling the main character to see if he was okay. Li Xingyi's number was unavailable, so the girl began to worry that something had happened to him. The young man actually fell into the river along with the truck, but survived. As soon as he swam ashore, the guy noticed that his phone was dead. And then the young man saw the place that Weiwei was talking about, because it is located in the mountains. After some time, the young man still managed to find Qin. However, the girl only asked why Li Xingyi came to this place. After that, Weiwei said that she lied, so the guy came in vain. Qin asked for forgiveness and advised the young man to return home. Therefore, the young man decided that his friend was simply being controlled. Then the main character started shouting that he would help Weiwei. However, after this, the girl from hell began to shout that the young man should not come near. But the young man did not stop, so something from the ground attacked him. It turned out that all this was just an ordinary trap for Li Xingyi. After this, the seller heard the voice of Wu Hai, who was glad that the young man had finally arrived. Weiwei started screaming for the guy to run away and not worry about her. The seller did not know what to do, because if he went to Qin, he would fall into a trap. And then the young man realized that the villain had installed an array of withering ruins. The attacker was sure that Li Xinghe would not be able to destroy this array. Wu Hai said that if the guy stops interfering with him, he will be released. The young man was amused by the fact that they were trying to threaten him in such an insignificant way. After this, the young man decided to use the flaming pill to deal with the criminal. If a guy is going to be stopped using the wood element, he will crush him with fire. The villain did not expect that Li Xinghe would start fighting him in this way. Wu Hai was amazed at how strong the seller was. While the young man was saving the girl, the attacker shouted that this was not the end. Wei Wei began to scold the young man for starting to save her, because she could handle it herself. After that, Qin began to leave and told the guy to better worry about his mortal friend. Then Li Xinghe remembered Wang Qiu, who was most likely worried about him. Miss Yu at this time went to the young man's store, where she also did not find him. Therefore, the girl began to think that something really happened to the young man. And then Wu Hai appeared next to the seller's friend, who scared her. When the main character returned home, he noticed that his door was open, and the ghost girls were very scared and asked Li Xinghe for help. After this, the young man asked the spirits who did this to him, and they pointed to the man. Then the seller saw that the attacker had captured his girlfriend. The girl was happy that the main character was alive and well. Wu Hai said that if Li Xinghe wants to take the girl back, then he must give the criminal something in return. It turned out that the attacker was interested in the secret of the young man's development, because just recently he was an ordinary person, and only if the seller tells his secrets, the man will let Wang Qiu go. The guy was ready to reveal all the secrets, but the girl didn't want it, because then the villain would become stronger. But Li Xinghe still agreed to the conditions, and shared that all his secrets were on his phone. Then the attacker began to approach the young man to take a closer look. However, the young man simply deceived Wu Hai in order to later attack him with the help of the firmament. The criminal was not prepared for the blow, so he did not have time to defend himself in any way. Taking advantage of the moment, Li Xinghe saved his friend, who was happy about it. After this, the young man told Wang Qiu to run away, and he decided to deal with Wu Hai. The rivals fought with full force, confident that only one of them would remain alive. Although both opponents were strong, Li Xinghe managed to win. Then Wu Hai began to say that if the young man killed him, then he would have trouble because of the Wu family. However, all these threats were unimportant to the main character, because he was very angry. At the Wu family's house, they immediately learned that Hai had died because the tablet of his soul had collapsed. Then the patriarch ordered to find out who dared to do this to their family. After the attacker's death, Li Xinghe took the bell from him. And then the commander came running to the seller's store along with Wang Qiu. Zhang was glad that the attacker finally got what he deserved. But even after all this, Miss Yu was very scared, which the guy noticed. It turned out that the heroine was worried not for herself, but for the young man, because she thought that he had died in a car accident. The girl asked the young man to promise to tell her everything in the future. Then the main character promised that he would never make his girlfriend worry again. After that, Wang Qiu ordered a taxi because she had to go to work. As soon as the girl arrived, Wei Wei appeared next to the guy and said she came to say goodbye because she was going to hell. Then the heroes entered the store, and Qin saw some kind of package on the table. When Wei Wei, out of curiosity, decided to see what was drawn for us, but something began to happen. After this, the acquaintances found themselves in a completely different world, which was different from the store. The girl from hell got scared and therefore immediately moved to another place. And the young man, in turn, decided to understand what kind of secret was hidden in the picture. And then an old man appeared next to the main character, with whom Li Xinghe was already familiar. The Taoist said that when his enemies killed him, his soul moved into this picture. It turned out that initially, before the old man appeared, this picture was just a map of the country. But only the young man could not see the entire contents of the card, because he had a low level. And if Li Xinghe wants to develop with the help of this painting, then he must first become its owner. And for this, the main character had to give his blood to the picture. The young man did so, dropping a drop of blood onto the card, and after that, he became its owner. After this, the guy received a call from Mr. Tan, who asked the young man to fly to the capital. They even bought a plane ticket for Li Xinghe, so the guy went to the right place. It turned out that Xiaoxi would be working on a jewelry project in the capital, and so the old man was worried about her safety. Therefore, Mr. Tan asked the young man to become the girl's bodyguard, and in exchange for this, the old man appointed the young man as the CEO of the Tang Entertainment Network. Entertainment has become the Tang family's new industry, and Li Xinghe now has complete control over it. So the young man agreed to the deal and was already in the capital. I picked up Li Xinghe Xiaoxi because the guy no longer had his own car. As a result, the heroes arrived at the branch of the Tang Group, which was located in a huge building. The girl said that her uncle, Tang Gowan, was already waiting for the young man at his place. And then the seller noticed that even though it was day outside, there was an ominous atmosphere in the building itself. In addition, The young man noticed that there was no one in the corridor, but the elevator was still crowded. Then the young man realized that he and his girlfriend had been ambushed. With the help of magic, the heroes were able to get out of the elevator, where their uncle was already waiting for them. Gawain began to calmly talk to Xiaoxi, but the young man sensed something was wrong. And so it happened, because the uncle attacked Miss Tan. Because most likely he was possessed by spirits. There were a large number of spirits, so Li Xingye began to fear that his strength might not be enough. Xiaoxi started screaming for the guy to save her, but he didn't know what to do. And then the young man remembered a map of the country that could help him. So the main character decided to use this card, ordering it to open. With the help of his painting, the young man was able to capture all the spirits. After that, the uncle woke up not understanding what was happening and where Xiaoxi came from. The guy explained that Gawain was possessed and could not control himself. Then the young man suggested that this was all the work of the He family. The attack was eliminated, so Li Xinghe went to his office. The young man was warned that an interview for female roles in the film would take place in the evening, and he would have to attend. In addition, an old man was waiting for the guy below, who claimed to be a student. Li Xinghe immediately guessed who it was and called the spiritual mentor to him. It turned out that after taking the pill, both disciples went to Taoist temples to retire. And after that, the seller immediately showed the Taoist an unusual picture. The old man invited the young man to enter the picture and explore it. Then the main character decided that this was a really good idea, so he immediately did it. The young man immediately noticed that the world inside the map had changed a lot. And then a girl appeared next to the seller and asked him if he was the new owner of the card. It turned out that the previous owner of the painting fell asleep, and the stranger was the spirit of the map of the country called Tianzong. After this, the main character asked the girl where the spirits that were included in the map went. Then Tianzong silently showed the young man what he asked. However, Li Xinghe didn't particularly like looking at the spirits, so he asked them to go away. It turned out that these creatures take up a lot of space, so the girl expanded the space and hid them. When the heroes figured everything out, Tianzong said goodbye to the young man and went to bed. After this, the main character returned to reality and realized that it was time for him to go for an interview. At the event, Li Xingye told producer Ma that the environment in the room was too strange. However, Mr. Ma was happy with everything, so he called all the actresses. The girls began to try to draw the boys' attention to themselves, and this made him very uncomfortable. And then the guy said that someone was calling him on the phone, after which he simply left the event. The He family, meanwhile, conspired with the Wu family against Li Xingye and the Tang family, and the villains had many ways to destroy the young man. The next day, the main character went to his office again, and there the guy was waiting for Xiaoxi, who heard that yesterday he offered all sorts of different things to the actresses. After this, the young man noticed that the girl had strong spiritual energy, which means that the old man gave her a pill. To protect the heroine, the guy gave her an object that absorbs spirits. In addition, Li Xingye gave Miss notes on methods of communicating with spirits, and the heroine asked to help her with this. Then the guy pretended to be a spirit, and the heroine had to do as it was written in the book. Xiaoxi tried to do everything according to the instructions, and she did it quite well. The girl was so good at magic that Li Xingye began to tear off her clothes from her power. In the end, Miss Tan managed to shackle the young man, so he began to ask to be released. And then, unexpectedly, one of his students burst into the main character's office. The old man came in at such an inopportune moment that he became embarrassed and immediately ran out. When the young man figured everything out, he went with the Taoist and Xiaoxi to the residence of the He family. The spiritual mentor suggested that Guishan and his daughter contacted the Taoists. As a result, the heroes arrived at the villa, which turned out to be the base of the father and daughter of the He family. Li Xingye decided to look inside first and asked the others to wait for him. However, immediately after this, the young man fell into a trap and lost the ability to move. The pressure around the guy was getting stronger, and if this continues, he will die. The seller understood that since his body could not move, he could only rely on his soul. And then someone told Li Xingye that if he passed on the firmament method, he would live. Then the guy said that he would be able to remember the required formula only if he was released. However, the attacker did not want to easily agree to let the guy go. Luckily, the demonic wind stopped, so the pressure stopped getting stronger. After this, Li Xingye began to stall for time while he looked for a weak point to attack. While the criminal continued to demand the young man's secret, he in turn realized that the man was underground. Thanks to this, the young man was able to free himself from the trap. When the opponent was defeated, the heroes were able to go inside the mansion. There, the old man immediately noticed He Guisheng, who had been dead for some time. After that, He Rong was found, whose body was also not the first freshness. And then the heroes were joined by their rival, who crept up unnoticed. The young man immediately began to fight with the immortal Taoist, and both men were quite strong. However, when the guy started to attack, his opponent disappeared, so it became clear that it was an ordinary clone. After this, the young man asked Old Man Can to find out which faction the attacker was from, and then the villain shouted that there was no need to find out anything, because he would tell everything himself. It turned out that the man's name was Wu Shengtong, and he was here to avenge Wu Hai. Li Xingyi was attacked by a large number of clones, but he was able to defeat them all. After this, the young man went home, and the next day they brought him a list of new actresses. Among the other girls, the main character noticed Lin Jing, who also wanted to play in the film. The young man immediately asked that his friend be invited to see him. In order to contact Lin, I had to call her manager Li Kui. It turns out that celebrities from Kui's agency refused to work with Tang Entertainment Network. Therefore, the protagonist decided to personally visit Lin Jing in person. But unfortunately, the young man I knew was not in the office. However, after Li Xinghe pretended to be a big fan of the girl, he was given the address where she would have dinner. In one of the offices, the bosses discussed how together they could bypass the Tang network. The manager told Lin that the girls should join the men and drink with them. After that, Jing admitted that she didn't know how to drink at all, so she didn't want to. But one of the bosses said that the contents of the glass are an opportunity. The man shared that his company is currently casting, and the role of the main character is available. Director Fang promised the girl that his film would open up a lot of opportunities for her. However, Lin did not want to listen to the man and was against the fact that he sat too close to her. This behavior angered Li Kui, because it is forbidden to behave this way in front of the directors. But then the conversation of those present was interrupted by the delivery man who brought the dishes. The woman knew that all the dishes had already been delivered, so she was surprised by the young man's appearance. The young man exclaimed that these portions were free, and then vomited the contents of the plate onto the director. Li Xingyi then introduced himself as the executive director of Tang Entertainment Network. Lin Jing in turn did not understand how her acquaintance ended up in this place. Director Fang promised the guy that he would not find a single production team for his film. The seller said that he had already found it, and then asked the gods to throw off his photos for the phone. The deities were happy about this deal, so they rushed to take a lot of selfies and send them. Li Kui, meanwhile, said that the young man had better apologize to Fang. Then Li Xinghe showed everyone photographs of the gods, saying that these were his actors. Those present were amazed at how well the characters had good acting and costumes. Director Fang said that if the guy introduces him to his team, then he can get a small share in the capital's show business industry. But Li Xingyi didn't care about the dirty community of these bosses, so he refused. In addition, the young man added that Lin Jing will play the main role in the next film of the Tang Company. The young man managed to take his friend away from her manager and director. Li Kui then swore that tomorrow the main character would definitely pay. The young man invited his girlfriend to temporarily stay at the residence that had been organized for him. But then Lin asked why the air conditioner was working so hard, because it was cold. Li Xingyi immediately realized that Wei Wei was the cause of the change in temperature. Qin shared with the main character that she ended up in this place in search of spirits. The young man replied that he could not help in any way because he had no perfume. But the girl from hell was not deceived, because she noticed the spirits from the cellar last time. Wei Wei immediately took out the painting because she knew that what she needed was there. Because of this, the heroes immediately found themselves in a space that was inside the map of the country. Kyoya noticed that there were a lot of spirits in this place, so she asked where the guy got them from. The seller explained that it was not he who killed all these spirits, and then asked to pick them up. With the help of her bag, the girl was able to instantly catch all the ghosts. But then someone who was being pulled into the magical instrument began to ask his general for help. After this, the screaming young man was actually helped by a man who came running to the call. The general's name was Chu Renwang, and he was willing to fight the threat to the end. Li Xingyi assumed that he saw spirits in front of him that had gained intelligence. Wei Wei, meanwhile, shouted to the general that if he challenged her, she would tear his soul. Renwang believed that it was better for his soul to be destroyed than for him to give up. The rescued young man began to shout that in this case he would fight together with General Chu. The entire formation joined the men and was ready to fight to the end. Li Xingyi noticed that these troops were very loyal, so he wanted to keep them for himself. Then Wei Wei stopped touching the warriors, saying that this was how she showed respect for the young man. The troops said that after their commander died in battle, they vowed never to serve anyone again. The girl was sure that such faithful people would not serve the guy. Then Li Xingyi asked the master's name, and he was told that his name was Liu Cheng. After this, the seller began to laugh and say that the gentleman did not die in battle, but simply surrendered. These words angered the soldiers, because in this way Li Xingyi showed disrespect. But this still made General Chu doubt Liu Cheng. As a result, believing the young man, Renwang swore endless loyalty to him. The young man spent the whole night in the picture, so he was glad to return to reality. And then Wang Chu called the main character, and he decided that the girl was bored. But contrary to expectations, Miss Yu was wondering what the guy had done in the capital, because he was in the search trend. There was news circulating on the internet that the executive director had arranged a night with the actress, After some time, the girl calmly went to the guy to bring him food. The young man was frightened by the fact that Lin did not knock before entering. Lee Sing-hee began to explain to his friend that they needed to be careful, because rumors had already spread about them. And then the aspiring actress said that she was not against all this. But the young man still decided to ask Zhang Wuwei to find the culprits of this news. The salesman told his apprentice to help him expose Kuya's company. As a result, within a week, CEO Chung Gong scolded Lee for the fact that the shares of their company were falling due to negative news. The manager didn't know that Lee Xinghe had so much information about them, so she couldn't do anything. As a result, the heroes decided that they needed to calmly discuss everything. And then they came up with the idea that they needed to make the young man disappear. The director decided that the main character should not be allowed to live, because he is disturbing everyone. Li Kuei wanted to stop the man, but then she realized that something had been put in her water. Because of this, the manager simply fell on the table and could not do anything else. After that, Master Wu entered the office and immediately went to the woman. The Taoist said that Li Kuei was the last medicinal ingredient for his brother. After this, Master Wu promised that Li Xinghe would be eliminated on that very day. The man took the girl and went to his home, where he gave her to his brother. First of all, the brothers asked Li Kuei to call the young man and ask him to come. Although the manager didn't want to do this at first, she was forced to, so she still called the seller. The main character, meanwhile, asked his girlfriend not to wash his clothes anymore, and Lin explained everything by saying that she just wanted to do something good for the guy. But then the heroes were distracted from the conversation by a phone call from the young man's smartphone. The caller was Li Kui, who said she wanted to talk to him about the negative news circulating on the internet. Therefore, Li Xingyi immediately went to the address that the manager told him. When the young man arrived at the right place, he felt a strong yin energy in the air, so he had a bad feeling. The main character began to call Li Kui, however, the girl did not answer him. And then a voice from the darkness told the young man that they had finally met. The guy immediately recognized the speaker and guessed that it was Master Wu who called him. Sheng Tong decided it was time to settle their differences with the seller. Ghosts were immediately sent to Li Xinghe, so he took out a map to help. Unfortunately, this time the world map did not work, which surprised the guy. Master Wu admitted that he had strengthened his ghosts so that they were no longer so easy to defeat. And then the general director who worked with Li Kui joined Sheng Tong. Then the main character realized that the director and Master Wu were conspiring against him. Therefore, Li Xinghe decided to use his newly acquired army. All the warriors were ready and were only awaiting orders from their master. The troops quickly dealt with the spirits, killing them all with their swords. The men did not think that everything would turn out this way, because they were sure that they would be able to finish off the young man. After this, Master Wu attacked his ally, and then decided to tell his brother everything. However, Sheng Tong was unable to escape because he was stopped by a young man. Master Wu tried to offer the young man cooperation, because he knew that there was no other way in. But the main character did not want to work with the attacker, so he refused. And after that, with the help of his strength, Li Xingyi attacked his opponent. Meanwhile, Sheng Tong's brother was sitting in the room next to Li Kui, who was tied up. And then the man heard words that he urgently needed to run away. The troops, meanwhile, destroyed all the ghosts and completed the mission. Then the main character told the captain to take the corpses of their opponents to the map. After this, the young man went in search of a manager. And in the end, Li Xingyi was still able to find Li Kui, who was tied to the bed. The young man also noticed a hole in the ceiling, so he assumed that someone had escaped through it. After being released, the girl began to cry and tell the guy that he had to save her. The salesman decided to take the manager to the hospital, but she continued to repeat that she was hot. The main character noticed that Li Kui was burning all over, and therefore decided that she was poisoned. The young man tried to remove the poison from the manager, however, he failed. And then the heroine began to ask Li Xinghe to kiss her urgently. The young man thought that a kiss was the only way to remove the poison, so he agreed to it. After this, Li Kui really felt better, and she began to apologize to the seller for her behavior. But Li Xinghe was not angry with the manager, so he simply sent her to rest. Since the seller was able to solve all the problems, he finally went home. And at home, Lin Jing was already waiting for the young man, who noticed that he had been gone for a long time. Then the young man noticed that his friend was nervous for some reason, and so the guy noticed that he had one uninvited guest. Wang Chu looked at the young man and said that it turned out that the rumors were true. It turned out that Miss Yu had mistaken Lin Jing for a personal assistant for the executive director, and the main character didn't even argue, agreeing with all his friend's words. But Wang Chu was still embarrassed by the fact that his personal assistant was washing the young man's underwear. Miss Yu wanted to surprise her friend, but she was very upset, because by all indications, he had taken a mistress. Therefore, the heroine said that she and Li Xinghe needed to reconsider their relationship. As soon as Wang Chu left, Lin Jing began to apologize for ruining everything. The seller reassured his friend that everything was fine and it was not her fault. The young man was confused, because he did not understand at all what kind of relationship he and Wang Qiu had. Therefore, the main character decided that heaven would help him sort out this issue. Li Xinghe decided to write to the god Yue Lao so that he would check the fate of the guy and the girl. The celestial being replied that it is very easy to check fate, you just need to check whether the red threads of the heroes are connected. However, personal investigation of fate is against heaven's rules, so Yue couldn't. But as soon as the young man offered the deity a phone, he immediately agreed. And after some time, Lao wrote that he looked at all 3 threads of fate, but could not find the name of Miss Yu Wangqiu. So the seller asked the celestial if there was a way to solve this. The main character even promised God another phone if he helped. After this, Yue gave the young man the red thread of fate. The young man only needed to tie a thread to the lady who interested him. The next time Li Xingyi sees his girlfriend, he will have to tie a magic item on her. In the morning, Lin Jing brought the guy breakfast, but he was no longer in bed. After all, the guy at this time is showing the bodies of his opponents to his student. And then the main character noticed a universal bag, inside of which there should be treasures. Inside the bag, the young man found manuals on techniques that were useful to him. Thanks to the found scrolls, Li Xinghe will be able to learn teleportation and the great summoning of spirits. In addition, the young man managed to find the secret of endless yin-yang, which took place by absorbing the energy of the blood and soul of living spirits. Then the young man decided to burn the last scroll with harmful techniques. And the young man decided to keep the 2 techniques that do not harm people. While Li Xingyi was with one of his students, another was knocking on the door of his house. Since the guy was not there, Tao's door was opened by Lin Jing, who explained everything to the Taoist. But the girl was wrong, because the seller was at home and invited the student to come inside. Xingming said that Zhang Wuwei asked him to take Li Xinghe to Maple Mountain. It turned out that the police found traces of suspicious individuals this year. The suspect is using extremely sinister methods, and 2 people from the investigation department have even disappeared. Therefore, the seller suggested that Wu Yuan might be to blame. The young man learned that not only he, but also Zhang Wuwei and Tang Xiaoxi were going to the crime scene. The young man and his student had almost arrived at the Maple Mountain. So the head of the investigation department, Ma Xiaotong, and old man Zhang were already waiting for the men. After some time, the main character was still able to get to the crime scene. The young man immediately asked the spiritual mentor where Miss Tan was. And then the Taoist came to his senses, because Xiaoxi was next to him a few minutes ago. It turned out that the girl was missing, so the young man went to look for her. Li Xinghe remembered that he promised old man Tang to take care of his granddaughter. Unfortunately, no matter how much the men searched, they did not see any clues. However, after some time the police still managed to find something. The men found a body on a tree, and after that they recognized it as Xiaoguang. Therefore the police immediately rushed to their comrade, but the guy tried to stop them. Chief Ma still decided to climb the tree, even though the young man asked not to do so. The man had almost reached Xiaoguang, but then something scared him, and he fell. Then it became known that what was hanging on the tree was a man and a paper doll. Tao noted that he did not really like the boss, so he decided to look for evidence himself, together with his spiritual mentor. But then one of the employees noticed that there was another person hanging on the tree, and after that it became clear that there were a large number of paper dolls there. Chief Ma started shouting that he would shoot everyone he saw. Only the young man did not allow the man to do what he had planned because it could be dangerous. It turned out that the policeman almost started shooting Guan, who was among the dolls for real. Therefore, the heroes hastened to remove the victim from the tree, and it turned out that he had a weak pulse. Although Xiao was alive, half of his soul was drained due to the forces that were in this area. As a result, the heroes took Guan with them and continued their search, because their mission was not over yet. But then the young man realized that they were trapped as soon as they entered the area. Meanwhile, Li Xing's students managed to find some stranger. Without thinking twice, the Taoists suggested that it was not an ordinary passerby, but Wu Yuan, and the heroes were absolutely right, because this was exactly who they were looking for. The monks decided to attack the attacker, but this did not frighten him at all. The criminal was much stronger than the young man's students, so he was confident of his victory. It turned out that Wu Yuan was creating an array, and for this he just lacked 2 souls. So he decided to use Taoists as material. The police, meanwhile, found the tree on which the woman was hanging. As soon as those present took a closer look, they saw that the girl turned out to be Miss Tang. The first thing that came up to Xiaoxi was a young man who asked if his girlfriend was okay. Half of Miss Tang's soul was also devastated, so it was urgently needed to return it. The young man did not know what to do, so he decided to ask the gods for help. Then Tianxi, who knew how to fix everything, came to the guy's aid. In return, Zhang asked the young man for a role in his new film. The main character immediately promised the deity what he wanted, so help did not take long to arrive. It turned out that the villain was using yin magic, so to defeat her, you need to attack her with a pure yang object. Then the young man remembered that thunder should be just such an object. Fortunately, Li Xingyi had just bought a thunder amulet earlier, so it should help. Wu Yan meanwhile told the Taoists that the seller would never defeat him, but then the attacker heard the sounds of thunder, which he did not expect at all. The young man at this time used all his strength to create lightning. 10 thunder amulets had already been used up, but the spell was still not broken. The villain meanwhile realized that Li Xingyi plans to defeat him with the help of thunder. Therefore, Wu Yuan decided that it was time to sacrifice the merchant's disciples. The criminal was much stronger, so the monks could do absolutely nothing. But then the scoundrel heard a sound that attracted all his attention, and he even forgot about his rivals. At that same second, a large number of lightning bolts flashed near Wu Yuan. Li Xingyi managed to destroy the enemy's magic, so the souls had to return to their bodies. The attacker realized that it was time to run away, so he tried to hide. But the young man didn't want to just let the criminal go, so he used shrink magic and became small. Wu Yan was glad that he was able to escape. However, the young man caught up with him using his strength. And then the main character invited his rival to make a deal. The villain was required to tell about the kingdom of the immortals, and then he would receive several amulets. It turned out that in legends this kingdom was hidden from outsiders, and was the 4th in addition to the 3 main ones. But Wu Yuan doesn't want to make a deal with Li Xingyi so easily. The criminal knew that information about the kingdom of the Earth's immortals should not be passed on to outsiders, otherwise the entire family would be destroyed. Then the young man decided that he would simply delve into the memories of his opponent. Unexpectedly, Wu Yuan simply self-destructed so that the guy would not get secret information. However, after this the main character realized that the criminal was just a clone. After destroying the villain's magic, Xiaoxi came to her senses and was completely fine. And then the seller noticed that Mr. Tan himself was calling him on the phone. The old man arrived in the capital, but could not get through to his granddaughter. Therefore, the young man promised that he would bring the girl right away. When the old man found out about everything that happened, he wanted to swear brotherhood with Li Xingyi and his spiritual mentor. But Xiaoxi was not ready for this, because she did not know how to address her friend now. It turned out that the guy wasn't particularly happy about it either, because it seemed inappropriate to him. Since everyone refused, Mr. Tan decided to propose another idea, and after that, the old man decided to marry his granddaughter to the main character. But this was not particularly accepted by Xiaoxi, because she was sure that the seller already had a girlfriend. The young man himself was amazed at how Mr. Tan was determined to give him the girl. And then the young man received a message from Li Kui that she felt terrible, and therefore asked the guy to come. The main character immediately rushed to help the girl who was in trouble. However, when Li Xingyi walked into the manager's house, she didn't look like she needed saving at all. But then Kui was distracted, and because of this, her glass of wine slipped out of her hand. Only the object didn't break at all, because the heroine, using telekinesis, stopped it from falling. It turned out that Li acquired abilities after a kiss with a young man. The young man noticed that his strength also increased after this, so he decided that the girl was unique. After this, Kui admitted that she left the company she worked for. Then Li Xingyi invited the manager to join his company. Having resolved all the issues, the guy decided to leave. However, the girl asked him to stay. But then his father called the seller and told him that he and his wife would come to his son in the capital. Therefore, the man suggested having a dinner where they would discuss the young man's wedding with Wang Qiu. After some time, when Miss Yu was walking down the street, she met Taoists. The men said that Li Xingyi was taking out his anger on them because Wang Qiu did not want to see him. The students began to cry to the girl that if their teacher did not see Miss Yu, he would beat them to death. The heroine was outraged by the young man's behavior, so she agreed to come to him. Only Wang Qiu had no idea that all this was just an insidious plan. The girl came to the young man to tell him everything, but he asked to leave it for later. After all, in fact, the main character called the girl so that they could all have dinner together with his parents. In the end, Miss Yu realized that the Taoists had deceived her, but decided to stay for dinner. After some time, Mom and Dad began to hint to Li Xingyi that it was time for him to marry Wang Qiu as soon as possible. The girl also understood all the hints, so she said that she would not marry the young man. Then the parents began to blame their son for offending Wang Qiu. But the heroine explained everything by saying that she and the seller were simply too busy. So Miss Yu decided that she and her boyfriend needed to break up, and then she started to leave. But then the main character stopped the girl to give her the last gift. Wang Qiu still accepted the bracelet that the young man gave her before she left. And then the girl said that she would discuss the wedding with Li Xingyi when everyone returned to Wenan. To celebrate the approaching celebration, Tao offered to show everyone around the port city. Everyone was happy with this proposal, except for the young man, who was sure that Xingming was up to something. A week ago before, in the trading city, the Taoist was advertising his medical class, which cost a lot of money. But some strangers said that Tao was not a master, but a fraudster. Because of this, the men quarreled and decided to compete with each other. Jingming accepted the stranger's challenge. However, he lost miserably. After this, everyone who studied with the Taoist demanded that their money be returned to them. When Li Xingyi heard this story from his student, he was shocked that he was defeated with one blow. It turned out that Tao called his teacher to the port city so that he would avenge the Taoist. Then the heroes decided that Wang Shu would show his parents the city, and the young man would go to help Jingming. The Taoist knew that tomorrow was the 70th birthday of the city's richest man, He Dongqing, and that stranger should also be there. Therefore, the men also decided to go to the holiday, and chose jade as a gift. However, the next day the heroes were not allowed into He's mansion, because they did not have an invitation. But then Xiaoxi was next to Li Xingye and his student, thanks to whom they were allowed in. And while Tang was giving ordinary jade, one of the guests decided to give He a pill that contained spirit energy. However, the young man noticed that the last layer of the medicine contained something strange. So the guy stopped the old man and told him that he shouldn't eat the pill. The seller explained everything by saying that the elixir contains a mind-controlling ingredient. The man who brought the pill was offended by such words from the protagonist. Then Li Xinghe suggested feeding the pill to a cat or dog to test it. As a result, the pill was actually fed to the dog, and after that the animal began to obey all commands. Everyone was shocked that the dog, who did not listen to anyone, began to carry out all the orders of the young man. After this, the young man told the animal to bite the man who brought the pill. However, the order was not carried out, because the man killed the animal with one blow. Old man. He realized that the pill was indeed dangerous, so he asked the person who brought it to leave. After that, Dongqing brought the jade to Li Xinghe, whose spirit energy was much stronger than that of the pill. However, the young man did not punish the man with the pill in any way, so as not to spoil the festive mood of the others. When the heroes returned back, Tao stopped recognizing the road along which they had already traveled earlier. The young man then shouted for his student to urgently stop the car. It became clear that someone had created an array and changed the terrain, so that the men ended up on the ocean shore. After that, the culprit of everything, who turned out to be Yang Ziyang, appeared in front of Li Xinghe. Tao recognized all these people, because they were the ones who called him a fraudster. As a result of all this, a real fight broke out between the men. The seller had too many rivals, so the seller decided to call in his army. As a result, the wars managed to defeat everyone except Yan, because he escaped. After this, Li Xinghe heard a voice that said that the young man had insulted the kingdom of the immortals of the earth, so there would soon be cruel retribution.